February 12, 2013, Gulf County Board of County Commissioners is now in session. Honorable Dan Smiley, Chairman.
Let's pray. Holy Father, we just thank you for this day that you have blessed us with, God. We ask that you will rule over this meeting, give us wisdom and guidance as we make decisions about the county, God. And I just ask that you will direct our words and our decisions so that they will bring honor and glory to you. In Jesus' name I pray.
Please to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank everybody for coming out today. We'll start our meeting off by, do we have anyone in the audience concerning the consent agenda? Anybody in the audience concerning the consent agenda? Can I get a motion from the board for the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, Mayor, I'd like to pull page 36.
And Mr. Chairman, I would like to pull page 5, page 1895.
18,
I also just have a comment about the checks and warrants that we approve each month, the first meeting of each month for the prior month. And I would like to make a recommendation that when the clerk's office sends out the information packet and the agenda, that they include an electronic file with the checks and warrants so that it can be reviewed not only by us but also by the public. We do have the opportunity to go and review them, but I think it would be easier for the clerk's office, rather than individuals going and reviewing the checks and warrants that we are approving, that they be sent as an electronic file.
So we got pages 36, 5, 18, and 95 pulled. Can I get a motion for the rest of the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, can I just make sure I understand the direction or the wishes of the board on that? Do you want us to just send you a copy to your emails to the commissioners, or are you asking us to provide them to Lynn to put on the website? I just need to know. I don't mind providing anything. I just need to know exactly.
I'm suggesting that we provide them along as part of the agenda and the information packet, because it is something that we are approving.
Okay, so you want us to actually attach it to, okay.
Right, so that anyone who gets the agenda and the information packet to look at, I do believe that it is a lot of paper and would not ask you to print it, but if an electronic version was sent, then it could be reviewed by the public and the commissioners without having to come to your office to review those items or request those specific emails if it was included with the other information.
Do you have a problem with that?
That won't be a problem.
And it would be just that previous month that's being approved under the consent agenda.
Only thing is it at times it may not be all inclusive at the time if it's a very early meeting in the month, just because sometimes we do manual checks and don't have them entered right away. Usually we try to get them in within the week, but it will be most of them. But just be aware that we have one that we haven't had a chance to get entered. There's are very few, though. I can promise you they are very few, because we try not to do handwritten manual checks. But that would be the only thing. But they would be
those in the end of the next.
Oh yeah,
month.
Yeah, sure.
Eventually they get.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I don't have an issue. You want a motion to that, or is that just a direction?
Would you like us to put that in the form of a motion?
I don't mind doing it at your direction.
Want to go ahead on and go over the ones that we pulled? Accept the rest of the consent. And
You on now?
Yeah, we can review them.
Okay, let's go to, pages 36.
Okay. Mr. McDaniel?
Yes.
You placed this in the consent, and, you know, it's for, well, I understand this, it's for a conference room for Mr. Rolly Carter. You know, we opened that building up and we moved him into the building there, and we gave him, I think, $5,000 at that time or whatever, so we could move him out of the old courthouse. Now we're looking at $5,800, you know, and the only problem and the issue I have with it is we didn't budget for this money, and I have a problem with going into our reserves or our savings or infrastructure fund or whatever and pulling this out. I would like to see him budget this, you know, to where we could get it budgeted. I don't like going outside of our budget. That's where we get into trouble, and that's why I pulled it.
Mr. Chairman, may I? Mr. Carter, with the Florida Extension Service, Lord, we had to move him out of the old courthouse due to a health issue. We relocated him to the old Gulf County Health Department building in Weaver-Hitchcock. It had to have work done in order for him to be able to use this facility. My concern is he has a very important meeting coming up. We've completed got him, and out of 5 rooms, we have 3 of the rooms have been completed. Like a conference room, which is very important to him, and in the kitchen area. And it's very important because Mr. Carter works with the school system here in Weaver-Hitchcock, up in Weaver-Hitchcock, and here in Port St. Joe with I think it was the middle school. But anyway, it was our decision to move him out. And we need to go ahead and get him fixed. Now, we have the money to do this. We can go into the general fund and get it. We probably have some reserve funds to do it. We're going to have to do it sooner or later, and you say let's wait till October to the new budget. I say we go ahead and do it now and get the man fixed, and then he'll have a good atmosphere. His staff can get everything in order. But I want to go ahead and get this work completed for the man.
May I comment one more time?
Sure.
The only problem is, Mr. McDaniel, I think I'm correct on this, with the timeline that he's looking at for his conference room, with his conference meeting and all, I don't think we can get it done before that time anyway, if he had the money on it.
Well,
So,
yesterday, we're going to set him up in a temporary room for this meeting he has coming up in about 2 weeks. But he will have other conferences coming out throughout the year. We need to go ahead and get this. We need to get him completed, get him in his building, then that issue's over with.
Are there any other conference rooms in the area that he could?
Well, when he sets up his equipment, once he gets it all set up, then he doesn't have to, he's set, and he can go from there. He doesn't have to move it and then relocate it back. But a lot of his comes out of the University of Florida, where it puts it on a screen, and actually the whatever they're discussing in there will be coming from the University of Florida. So I'm forgetting the gentleman. Get his room fixed. Get his building in order where he can work with it, and then we won't have this issue facing.
yeah, like I say, again, the only issue I have is going outside of our budget with it. I've said it for 12 years, and every time we've gotten into trouble is when we go outside our budget financially. So, that being said, you know, Mr. Chairman, call for the vote, whatever.
And Mr. Butler,
whatever it is.
let me
it
ask
is.
a question, Mr. Butler. Industrial park fund. Is there any money over that area for the industrial park?
Mr. Chairman, there is, any way you do it, if you funded this, you'd have to make a budget amendment from wherever it came from, but yes, there is money in the industrial park.
I was looking for Mr. Roy Lee, and I don't see him.
He was supposed to be. Roy, no, I don't see him.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to direct the chairman about the industrial park funds. Those funds are restricted under your EDA agreement, so you can't use them other than for economic development.
I've seen this request, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Goalie. If it's not something that we got to start on tomorrow, which I don't think the maintenance has got time to start on it tomorrow, can we table it for 2 weeks and then let Goalie come before the board, or if he comes to this board meeting? Would that be a problem, tabling it?
I don't have a problem.
You got a problem with that?
Well, I'd rather go ahead and let's address it. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd like to ask a question to the clerk. Ms. Norris, what are we talking about, $5,800? You take it out of the general fund?
If the board so
I know it.
voted to move it from a reserve account and by budget amendment, it can be done. It would require a vote of the board.
I'm aware of that. Now, let me just throw something out here. Dead Lakes Park, we were Hitchcock. That park went from in the red to in the black. Last year we collected, and I know you have to pay the sales tax and possibly the bed tax. We took in over $20,000 last year, and it was put in the general fund. I'm willing to use some of that money to help the project go, and then we can be repaid in the next budget. We put probably in the last 2 years close to $40,000 to $45,000, and it was collected at Dead Lakes Park, which I really wanted in a park improvement. Went into the general fund, so there is money in there to take care of this project.
Yes, there is. I would need to check to make sure that that's not restricted as well. The park fees, I don't think that it is.
I can tell you from the last conversation we had, it was just in the general fund.
Yeah, other than based on your own discussions about it being restricted for that park. I don't know if there's any minutes that specifically restrict it. I'd have to research that, but I don't recall any. But
So we got, can we just table this? Because ain't no way we can work on the room right now. We can table it, give Miss Becky time to do her research on that. Our next meeting.
Okay. Put a motion in order. Make a motion we table the next.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Mike Daniels, second by Mr. Yeager. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carried 5-0. Let's
That's
go to
30, that's what, 36?
36. Let's go to 5.
Mr. Chairman, this is just a simple revision to the minutes regarding the Restore Act technical advisor, and Mr. Novak had commented on what the position was of the county, what we could hire and what we couldn't. I would just like to modify the minutes to make sure that it's clear. And Mr. Attorney can comment on that.
Just reviewing the minutes, Mr. Chairman and Commission, with regards to the comments and the advisory opinion that was received back, there was additional instructions to the Commission with regards to the ability as a lobbyist from a former elected official within a 2-year window of leaving office. And I'd ask if you all would consider to amend the minutes in that provision just to include that statement, which is, it's not noted in there as well.
I'll make the motion to amend the minutes to clarify.
Motion by Ms. Bryant,
That's it. Go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
second by Mr. Mike Moore. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
18.
18 is a very similar issue, and I just want to clarify in the minutes, possibly could talk on this, that the money for the change order was in the grant. It was
What page is that again? I'm sorry.
page 18 on the White City landscape, White City Bridge.
Oh, yes, ma'am. That's a Florida Department of Transportation grant that was received for roadside beautification or landscape. It was received several months ago, and that's actually the second one that they have requested that we do. there was a set amount of money in the grant, and the bids came in a lot lower than what they anticipated. And so, per the request of my project manager at DOT, we added additional trees and stuff because they wanted us to use the grant funds.
So I would just make a motion that we clarify in the minutes that the monies were in the grant and the DOT requested that we expand the project to the level of the grant monies that were already given.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Bryant, second by Mr. Yeager. Any opposed? Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0. 95.
Mr. Chairman, on page 95, approving the travel for 2 years for the Florida Association of Counties, Small County Coalition, and the National Association of Counties for Commissioner Yeager. I know that Commissioner Yeager is heading up the Small County Coalition, and it's important that he be able to attend the required meetings. However, I have a little trouble with this broad of an approval for 2 years for all 3 organizations. And what I would like to see before we do this approval, I'd like to see what we paid for all travel for the 3 organizations for 2011 and 2012 for everyone. And I'd also like to see the figure of what was paid for Bill Williams' travel for the 3 organizations for 2011 and 2012. I think that we are in a very difficult economic time, and we need to tighten our belts, and we need to know what we're approving. We need to know where the money is going, and the people in the community need to know how we're spending the money. So I would just like to, before we have this type of an approval, I would like to have that information for us to consider.
I don't have any issue with that either, Mr. Chair. Probably need to do that. That's easy information for the clerk to provide. So, I think one of the things, the reason it's come up is specifically was the oil consortium, the meetings that take place, me being on that executive board, so they come up from time to time. So I don't have any issue with that.
You want 2011 and 2012, you want to go back that?
Yes.
Take in those, okay. Fiscal year, calendar year?
Whichever is easier for the clerk.
It's easier for us to do it on a fiscal year.
That's fine. And for, I'd like just for everyone for those 3 organizations, total for the year 2011 and a total for the year 2012, and then a total for Bill Williams for both years for those 3 organizations, because he was the one we were doing the most travel, I would say.
Why don't we go a little bit further with that? Why don't we include all travel, out-of-town travel? You want to look at it,
Okay.
look at all of it. I fought this issue for a while. Didn't get anywhere.
That's fine. We can look at all travel, but I also would like to break down from those organizations together the 3 for the total.
Clerk, can you take care of it?
Yes, sir. We can take care of that.
Other than those changes, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Mr. Yeager,
Second, Mr. Chairman.
second by Mr. Mike Daniel. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0. At this time, Mr. Butler.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you going to me first. I do have to leave here shortly, and I'll be back in probably 15 or 20 minutes when I leave. Mr. Chairman, my first item is due. I gave you a copy of October 25th, 2012 minutes to speak to a job description. And also I gave you a copy of a notice that we worked up for the newspaper advertising for a job. The reason I bring it back to you, typically we don't, but in this case in October, I told you after the job description was determined, I would talk to each one of you and then bring it back to the board as a whole. But this is the position we talked about. We need some help across the board, and not any one particular office, but all offices included. And if money was not an object, we could probably use 3 or 4 people or 5 people, but we asked for one person to do some work to cover for all. We got a lot of one-man bands, a lot of offices with just one person in them, and in order to keep everything going and including my office, it includes land. This is not a position to look like me. It is a position to look like everybody that works in administration. But for the board's consideration, allow us to continue with this ad and hire someone. I've been willing to take any questions.
Mr. Chair, this was something we talked about the last couple of years, and a need. We've got so many different departments that order things that if we did in bulk, or if we had one person, taking care of procurement, the county would save money. So I think this position would pay for itself. We've talked about this multiple times, but we've talked about this multiple times, but at the end of the day, I think we definitely need this position.
Haven't we already approved Mr. Butler going out for this?
We have.
Just need to do it.
The only stipulation was I told you in October I'd bring it back to the board.
Okay.
That's the reason I'm back.
I have quite a few reservations about expanding the government at this time. Again, it comes back to our finances and the entire country's finances. It seems to me that we have 2 tremendously pressing issues in this county, that being the landfill and economic development. And those 2 issues are the issues that we don't address because we claim we don't have the funds. Mr. Richardson has told us, Mr. Danford has told us that if we don't address the landfill issues, we aren't going to have any development. I cannot face my constituents who in their businesses are cutting back, are cutting employees, are cutting their own budgets, and face them and tell them that we have to expand government and hire. I think that we need to make do with what we have, and I am against creating any new jobs. I wasn't here in October to comment on it. I think the job description is very good. It's very well done. I think in better times it would be wonderful to have that position, to have some layering, but we just don't have it. And I think that we have enough people in place to cover, and we have to work more efficiently. There are a lot of things that we do in this county that are not efficient.
Well, I understand that thought process. I do. I don't want to see government expand anymore either. But over the past 4 to 5 years, we've cut $5 million and 40% out of this budget, and much of that included people. And so I don't think that anybody can say that we're expanding government. What we're trying to do is make it more efficient. We've talked for a couple of years about how we purchase products and how we do different things, and we've cut staff down to the point that they can't deal with this issue. So I see this position as not an expenditure, but I see it as a savings to the county. And there again, I can't think of anybody that would say we've expanded government over the last 4 or 5 years when we've cut the amount that we've cut. And we've done that by a number of different ways. We've done it through consolidation. We've done it through a number of different ways that working on the landfill with the half-cent sales tax. Very little of the monies that we've cut has come from extra revenue. The only extra revenue we did was actually start charging at the landfill, which we were the last county in the state of Florida not to charge, and we're trying to get it off the taxpayers' back. And I'm for continuing to see how we reduce government in people's lives. I'm all about that and all for that. This is one of those positions that I think that will help us reduce that.
Well, we also have heard from Mr. Richardson with his information, which does a great job, and he's told us that our county is shrinking. We have less residents in this county. We should be cutting back. And I'm looking at this job description. I don't see a salary here, but we're going to advertise for the job that we have not determined a salary here. I have to wonder exactly what the plan is. regarding this position. In any event, I've had several people talk to me wondering why we are looking to expand and create new jobs when we have businesses leaving, businesses shutting their doors. We have a lot of other issues that are pressing. I'm against creating a new job at this time. Maybe in the budget process, at that time, if we need to look at the staff overall and where we may need to make changes, then that might be the right time, but I'm against it currently.
Understand the argument? Oh, you had something?
Just comment. Certainly up to the board what you want to do on this. Your landscape as far as employees, your human resource, going to change in the next 2 to 5 years. You're going to have more than 2 or 3 retired in the next 2 to 5 years. That this person will provide some continuity between what they're doing now and what someone else is going to be doing at some point in time. But just trying to keep the boat floating. Board decision is.
There again, this is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
There again, this isn't something that we've just all of a sudden come up with. It's been a 2-year process of talking about it, and we didn't have the funds. And I think at the end of the day, it will pay for itself. This isn't something that we're trying to expand government. I think this board has showed that we're wanting to cut government. We want to get government out of people's lives, so to speak. So,
well, that sounds like government saying we're not trying to expand, we're trying to cut while we're creating a new job. I mean, frankly, it sounds like the federal government. But there are people that are retiring in the next few years. Some very talented, experienced people in this county that will be a loss to the county. However, there are people all over this state looking to make changes in where they live and where they work that have just a plethora of experience in government, in private industry. People need jobs. We will be able to recruit people in. It will be a loss to lose long-term people who have done a great job, but it's not unique. Our county is not unique in the fact that we have a county government. So I don't buy into the argument of continuity. I believe we could bring someone with the right experience and education in and bring them up to speed very quickly.
If no more comment, I'd propose that I'd make the motion that we proceed with advertisement. We've talked about it for years.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Yeager, second by Mr. McDaniel. Any opposed?
No.
Got 1 opposed. Motion carries 4-1.
Mr. Chairman, my second item is in the economic development project. I've been talking over the last 6 or 8 months with a group that has chosen to come in and talk to the county about a project they're proposing for Gulf County. It sounds very good. It's big. It'll be a lot of jobs. And let me back up a little bit. One reason it comes to me because the board is taking the point of contact for economic development projects back under the board's wing, and they have, for whatever reason, well, I don't know, chosen not to go to the port. I'm not going to the EDC and talk about this project. But what I'm asking you for is your consideration of allowing me to hire a consultant. It could be Neil Wade, his assistant. It could be the planning council. It could be a consultant to help us put together a package to pull a lot of agencies together to try to make this work. And I'm going to say up front too that we may put this thing together and it may not work, but if we don't put it together, it sure won't work. And I'm looking at someone that has the time to pull in EDA out of Atlanta, DOT, and the St. Joe Company. We're talking with them on 100 or 200 acres of land on the canal. The Corps of Engineers, because we'll have to talk about dredging down 35 foot in the bay and up the canal a short distance. And it's a big project. And this company was located in the Gulf County. But there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. So my request to you is for your consideration on allowing me to spend some money on consulting if we have a good sit-down meeting with the right people at the table, with this firm that we're located in Guff County, and the group thinks we should move forward. So I think I've been talking to them. I've been hearing them all the time. Talked to them a bunch of time over the last several months. Sound good to me. It's a possibility. And I think it's the reason we have some economic development money setting to the side that we can do something with. For your consideration, can I get a consultant to help us out on this project?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. One question, Mr. Butler, is this firm you've been talking to, are they willing to put money into the pot to try to make this project a success or workable?
From what I can tell, yes, but that would be the main reason for sitting down at the table with them and make sure they have a share of the pie.
Mr. Butler, did I hear the word canal dredge it to a depth of 35 feet?
Yes, sir.
How far inland?
Just as close to the bay as it could be, because we don't want to go to the work canal with that depth, because you're talking about seawalls on both sides to that depth and greater. So
we're talking for barges?
Ocean-going barges.
Yeah, you're talking about hiring a consultant. Has Barry Sellers been involved with this project?
This group has been coming to me. They deliberately chosen not to deal with the port or the EDC for whatever reason. They didn't tell me why. And I would say at some point in time, both will have to be included in this operation, in this project.
I think this is a position that Barry would assist in. Barry is an experienced economic development professional. He's educated, and before we decide to spend more money, we need to fund the money that we decided to fund to economic development and use the professional that we spent the money and the chamber spent the money to recruit and hire, and we need to pull Barry into this deal and work through Barry. We're moving in so many different directions, and to the outside, we show that we have no continuity. The people outside that watch these meetings, repeatedly seeing the BOCC moving in different directions with economic development, the local business people who want to buy in as private partners in economic development, they're afraid to because of how this government functions. Now, I appreciate Don's work, but he's telling us how busy he is, and then the board dumps economic development on him. He's working 7 days a week, I can see, but we dump this economic development on him. We need to make use of the assets that we have here. We have an economic development professional. We need to fund that board, and we need to work with Don on this project. We don't need to keep moving in different directions, spending additional monies.
Well, I understand the thought process, and I understand that there's been criticisms of the board, and sometimes duly so. However, this is a specific group that has come to Don Butler specifically because he didn't want to deal with others. And I think that I support Don in his decision to get a consultant, at least sit down at the table with a consultant. He may come back after he sits down at the table and says that we don't need this specific person. But I support Don. He's been dealing with these folks for months. He knows what the process is. I'm not privy to all the information, but I'm supportive of that.
Mr. Chairman, we're in some serious times in Guff County, and if the people want to talk here, and I think I understood Mr. Butler to say that after we sat down that the others would be definitely involve the port, so they're involved in it anyway. EDC also. But I can't see passing up an opportunity here. Just tell them, no, you've got to negotiate with these people or this group, and they just say, well, we'll go somewhere else.
But
I don't want to pass up any opportunity to try to get something this county.
But how would these people know that Neil Wade is okay to deal with, but Barry Sellers isn't? Is that what they've said, that they don't want to deal with Barry Sellers, but they'll deal with Neil Wade?
They have not, elaborated very little on why they have chosen to come to me and not go somewhere else.
So they're relying on you to bring someone in to assist. So if Neil Wade is okay, clearly a talented man, I would think Barry Sellers would be okay, equally talented. I would argue maybe more so. Nothing against Neil Wade, but Barry's got a great resume and a great track record. Neil Wade's in Bay County.
Yeah, I use Neil Wade. I said, Neil Wade, someone that's knowledgeable in the business.
Neil Wade, he has strong ties with the St. Joe Company, and here in Gulf County, you have to never rule out the St. Joe Company. They own the land.
We can
You've got to go to them.
We can work with the St. Joe Company without Neil Wade. I promise you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Motion to move forward with Don's recommendation.
Second.
Got a motion by Mike.
I want to hear the motion stated.
Motion to support Mr. Butler's recommendation of hiring a consultant.
So, no figures, how much is the consultant, no terms.
You asked for the motion. That's what I gave you.
If I could say, as always, if the bid threshold were to be exceeded, I'll be back in front of you people. If it's under the bid limit, which I sort of doubt it will be, then maybe I won't be back, but I'll be talking to each one of you individually on what that'll be. But anytime we exceed the bid limit, I'll have to go in front of the board. So my first desire is to sit down with this group and get the right people in the room, hopefully get DOT in the room and get the workforce board in the room, because they're going to be helping big part play with this, and get all the right people in the room to look and see if this is a viable project. It sounds very good to me over the last several months. But I'd like to get more people in the boat other than me in the boat and figure out, is this a good project? If so, I recommend we move forward.
I got a motion by Mr. Michael Moore, second by Mr. Mike Daniel. Any opposed? No, nobody. Mr. Bryant? 4-1, motion passed, 4-1.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to leave this a little bit. I'm going to leave I talked to Mr. Attorney about the industrial park contract. I'm going to leave it with him so he handle it after I leave. The last one I have right now is, also give you a copy. I got word from Mr. Attorney yesterday that Eugene Raphael had resigned from Restore that committee. I got an application here from Jim Townsend that he had filled out last week or so, and he would like consideration of being placed. And Jim's got 30-something years on the water, and for the board consideration to place him on the Restore committee.
So moved from Mr. Townsend.
Motion by Mr. Yeager,
Second.
second by Mr. Mike Daniel. Any opposed?
Yes.
Unopposed? Motion carries, 4-1.
I will be back probably in 10-15 minutes.
Ms. Lynn?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have Mr. Eric Asher. I would like to address the board in reference to Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance. Mr. Asher? A Second Amendment Preservation Ordinance.
I want to thank the board for taking the time to hear me on this.
Can you get a clerk your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Eric Asher. I live in Fort St. Joe. There's been an unprecedented attack as of late by the federal government on our Second Amendment rights. I don't know how many of you are gun owners. I don't know how many of you go hunting or fishing or whatever it is. But the issue at hand is, are we going to allow the federal government to work against the Constitution? And it comes down to this. I have been proud to serve this state as a corrections officer. I've served this county as a corrections officer. And I've also served the state working in juvenile detention. All of those jobs have one thing in common, and that is an oath. to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. All of you have taken that oath. Right now, in the federal government, there are those legislators who are willing to throw that oath out the window to further a political agenda at the expense of the rights of the citizens. I found through the Florida 10th Amendment Center a proposed ordinance which I would like to see the board enact. You all have a copy of it. I believe I emailed each of you individually. This act would send a strong voice of leadership that says, we will not allow the federal government to take away the rights of our citizens. You have a leadership position and you have an oath to uphold. This ordinance will send a strong message to the voters of this county saying that you take your oath very seriously and that you will uphold the Constitution even against illegal actions by the federal government. As of late, there's been a lot of resistance, a lot of statements made by county sheriffs, sheriff's associations across this country that have stated similarly, we will not allow and will not enforce any illegal laws that infringe upon the Second Amendment rights of the citizens. I ask that this board enact this ordinance in that spirit. Thank you for your time.
Comments from the board?
I've read through the ordinance. I actually agree with the ordinance. At some point, I would like for this board to at least advertise for a workshop and or a public hearing, and go through the ordinance and get public comment on that. I think I agree with every statement that's made in that ordinance that the Second Amendment needs to be defended, and that's where I stand with it.
Mr. Asher, I also agree with you and support you, and am a huge supporter of the Second Amendment, and I'm happy to see you here exercising your First Amendment rights as well.
Thank you.
I do believe that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and no ordinance can overrule that, and I believe that it doesn't need any support. We need to make the statement that we are following the Constitution and we support the Constitution, and I appreciate you coming up here and making the statement and putting it on the record, and encourage you to continue to exercise your First Amendment right and discuss your feelings on the Second Amendment. But I do not believe we need an ordinance. I don't believe we need a workshop, but I do believe that we support the Second Amendment.
Well, it's one thing to make a statement like that, but I mean, even our own legislature just recently did a House memorial stating in part that they find that the Second Amendment protects the rights of individuals to possess any bearable, commonly used firearm for lawful purposes, that the 10th Amendment prohibits the federal government from requiring the state or its officers to take part in any federal gun control scheme. Okay, I think that an actual ordinance to that effect basically just, it does more than just pay lip service to the Second Amendment. It puts teeth in it and says, we are going to protect our citizens' rights against illegal federal regulations and or enforcement actions which the sheriff might be obliged to have to take on behalf of the federal government. Because the feds aren't going to come down here going door to door and take weapons from people. If they ever decide to confiscate guns, it's going to be the sheriff that has to do that. This ordinance will prohibit that from being able to happen. That's the reason why I feel that the ordinance is important.
Mr. Chairman, if I can comment, Mr. Asher, I read his comments prior to today. He had mentioned a strong leadership, a voice of the strong leadership, and a strong message. The ordinances on the local level under home rule is your laws. So you all adopt ordinances. We're going to consider one later on today during the public hearing for an ordinance adoption. That's if you adopt a law. And Mr. Asher speaking to the strong message on a local level. Our State House has sent a memorial. On our local level, if you all want to express your voice, and you've done it many times over, you adopt a resolution or a proclamation. We've penned letters to the White House and to the President in the past, and we can do it again. Taking to another step of adopting an actual law that could be interpreted as contrary to our U.S. Constitution. You're constitutional officers. Our sheriff is a constitutional officer. And you've all taken that oath to abide by that. So when you speak about a strong message or a strong voice as this commission, if you all feel as though you're compelled to make that statement, it's through a resolution. That's the comment and the will of this board today. It may change tomorrow, it may change a year, it may change 5 years from now. When you adopt a law, obviously it's in effect until you repeal that law. So that message or that voice, as Mr. Asher is speaking to, is a function of a resolution. And I understand about the enforcement. That is obviously our sheriff's responsibility, and he acts under that Constitution. So if you all choose and you're endorsing that, then you do it through that function.
I like the idea of the resolution.
I like the workshop. I'm not a big gun fan myself, but I still think people have the right to bear arms. That's something I just would love to sit down and have a workshop on.
I think we've scheduled a workshop with a number of different items. I don't know if we've put the date on it, but we need to. And I don't have an issue with that being one of the elements, but I do like the idea of a resolution.
Well, you want to be in a workshop? Have it into this workshop. I'll put a motion on the floor.
Got a motion by Mr. Mike Daniels. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Yeager.
Mr. Chairman, is the motion for a workshop to discuss the language of a resolution, or is it the discussion of the proposal and adoption of our ordinance?
My thought was the language of a resolution.
Second by Mr. Davis. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have Mr. Gary Majeston with the Chamber and EDC.
Good morning. Gary Majeston, Port St. Joe, Florida. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, with the direction that the board is going this morning, I probably should have stayed and gone fishing or done something else than appear before y'all. But anyway, I would like to address the board and talk about economic development. During the summer of 2011, the county approached the Chamber to take over the function of economic development for the county. And by the way, I'm here as a citizen of Gulf County and not as the president of the Chamber. At that time, our Chamber Board agreed to do it with understanding that the county would fund the operation with an annual contribution of $80,000, which we were led to believe was a 5-year commitment. The Chamber Board, with the help of the Workforce Board, searched for an executive director with economic development experience. Barry Sellers was hired, and we all offered him a 3-year contract since economic development doesn't happen overnight. He started at the end of September in 2011. In his first year, the board gave him the task of increasing Chamber activity and presence. Barry was able to increase Chamber membership by 40%. When it came time for the county to contribute to the Chamber, the second year the county decreased its pledge by 20%. $64,000 was set aside. But before the county could receive any of those monies, the chairman of the BOCC decided to reduce that amount to $20,000. A vote was taken even though there was nothing on the agenda about that reduction. What I'm asking the county to do is to recommit to economic development for the county with a structure of the EDC outside of both the Chamber
and the county. I propose a 5-person board to oversee the operation and to determine the appropriate structure of this EDC with the goal of what that structure should be and how that organization will interact with both the City of Port St. Joe, the City of Weaver-Hitchcock, and the county government. This organization would need a firm commitment from the county for funding in order to attract private outside investors. That means there needs to be a written commitment. I am asking you to make that commitment and to change the perception of our county for the good of all of the citizens of Gulf County. Thank you.
Yeah, but, Mr. Magnuson, I understand you correctly when you said that you wanted this outside the chamber.
Yes, sir.
Okay, outside the chamber now. Sellers came on, or the EDC, the change-up came in, it was 2/11.
2/11 September.
And, my knowledge, I have to go back and research it, that 5-year gradual step down at the end of the 5th year, the county would be at 0. Am I making any sense there?
You are, sir, but when we originally were in discussions with some of the commissioners that attended some of the functions interviewing people like Barry Sellers, we perceived it was a 5-year commitment with no step down. That was added later on.
I never supported.
I'm not.
Never supported 5 years.
I remember we had a gradual step down. It would go
That
from
might have
80
been
to
the case.
64 and step down over a 5-year period. Now,
During that time,
Maybe wrong.
Bobby Pickles was the president,
correct?
and he was probably the one negotiating directly, speaking with the county. So if there was a step down, he may know about it, but in my conversations with him after taking over, he never mentioned anything about a reduction.
If I may, Mr. Attorney, can you shed any on this, or we're talking about the step-down procedure?
Nothing's ever been memorialized. I think when Mr. Pickles made that presentation to his commission over 2 years ago, the commission voted to accept the head in that direction and to come back with that organization and also to fund it initially and go out and staff it. The chamber and the county has nothing in writing with regards to any kind of structure in terms of a commitment of funding aside from the original year of budgeting. So nothing's been reduced to a memorialization of a 5-year or a step down or anything of that nature. If it was discussions, it's never been put down to paper.
I thought I was trying to remember back. I don't remember us signing any contracts.
No, sir. No, there's no agreement between the chamber and the county commission. Under Statute 288, there is the role of this commission as a county to identify your economic development agent. And last fall, if you all remember, we removed that from the chamber and the EDC functioning under that and put it back in the county administrators. But that's your designation that you, under statute, are compelled to put out there. If you do put it out there, then ideally it's brought back into the county. Put it out to a private agency. What you want to do is you want to put it in writing and memorialize what you have out there.
Well, it seems to me that the proposal of a 5-member board that Barry would report to, would this board commit to a regular reporting?
The board would commit to monthly reporting to the BOCC. The board would be made up of prominent business leaders. I've talked to a couple of people. Jerry Gaskin has said he would serve on that board. I am talking to some other people that would also like to serve, and there would be a proper reporting process so that the activities of economic development would be regularly reported to the board members of the county.
I've watched this process go on out in the audience when you pulled the designation back and decided to give it to the chamber. And it clearly did not work. An 11-member board, that's a lot of people to focus on economic development while they are focused on chamber activities. I think that they have two very separate and distinct purposes. They might interface at times, but you need to have a board that not only is focused on economic development, but understands economic development and business. And we haven't had that. Now, this board took that designation and put it under the chamber. Then there was no real direction. You spent money, the chamber spent money to go out and recruit. It's an expensive process. Brought various applicants here. Barry's not the only person who wanted this job. You brought various applicants here, I would assume, very talented folks. Talked to them, met with them, showed them around, and Barry was the one who got the job because he was the one that outshone the others. So that money is spent. Now Barry comes, he's working chamber and economic development. He's built the chamber. His money was defunded very quickly after he got here. So essentially, you've taken his right wrist and tied it to his left ankle behind his back and told him to do his job. And I think he's done a very good job under those circumstances. He's had little to no help, and economic development in Gulf County is a tremendous undertaking, as we all know. Now, a few months ago, he decided to take the designation back under the county. I do not believe that government should be running economic development. It needs to be run by private business. Now, if we're going to fund it, as we committed to do, we should have some oversight, and we should have regular reporting. We should know how this 5-member board is going to structure the private partners buying in, but we have to make that commitment. It has to be solid. It has to have funding. It has to be for a time certain so that the public, the private partners, have something to buy into, that they know that they're not going to pay $5,000 and weeks later it's gone, it's dissolved. And that has happened to some of our private partners. We also need to make that statement so that companies on the outside will see that we have continuity, that we're a serious county and serious about economic development and creating jobs, so they can feel comfortable coming in. I know, I've been here 7 years, which is a short time compared to most, but in the 7 years I've been here, I have seen companies that wanted to come in, and because of the way we conduct government, they didn't. They didn't want to take that risk. There's a lot of places to go, all over the country, all over the state. We have to step up. We have to be professional. We have to have a commitment and some continuity, and we have to get behind this man who has the talent, has the education, and can do the job if we let him. I like the plan that Mr. Magnuson has presented. I would like to make a motion that we fund this 5-member board, subject to the board being formed, and make the commitment for the remainder of, is it the 3 years, Mr. Magnuson? Is it?
We would like to have the 3 years remaining commitment, but we would like at least a 2-year commitment, because without a commitment and one that's positive and written, we can't get any private money. People will not contribute to the organization because they all view the organization as one that could disappear in a matter of days as soon as the county decides they want to take a different direction. Commissioner, there are a lot of positive things going on right now, and we have some very good prospects. But they're all leery of the way business is done in Gulf County, and we need to change that perception.
Mr. Magnuson, Mr. Chairman, let's go back. Let's just condense this down. You want to go with a 5-member board. You want to sever the EDC from the chamber.
Correct.
All right. And you want the county to pick up the tab.
No, I think we can get I want the county to contribute. I think with a firm commitment, we can also get the city to contribute, and we've even had conversations with the city of Weewahitchika to contribute. And I believe with those firm commitments, we can go out and get private investors to help fund the operation.
Mr. Chairman, I guess I need to comment too, because I was with the board for the last 4 or 5 years when we're trying to figure this out. And I'll tell you, economic development is difficult, but not only in Gulf County, but statewide. They just had a study that was done and just released yesterday on Enterprise Florida and rural Florida and the mistakes that have been made. And it's difficult. There's no question about it. Florida statute is clear on who's responsible for economic development. Government has got to be involved. It can't be separate. We're the ones that provide the taxpayer dollars incentives. We're the ones that do all the things that needs to be done, both city government, county government, and all through the process. We've got to be involved. There's no question that we can't be a sideline partner. We've got to be involved. With that being said, we've for the last number of years, I've seen criticisms for the board duly sometimes. Absolutely. However, it's not the board's entire fault for all the things that have went wrong with economic development. It's just not. I mean, we all struggle with trying to figure out how do we bring jobs to our community. We all struggle with that. At the end of the day, every time I turn around, I see an email or a letter or something that blames this Board of County Commissioners. And I agree. Sometimes we need to be blamed. We're thick-skinned. We can take that. However, I can take it a lot more when this board, I don't even think I was here when they did that, when this board brought it back under the county. That's where it needs to be. That's what the statute, stipulates. And I agree that it needs to be brought back under the county, and we need to establish an EDC board under the county. That way we know it's reported. I've talked to many businessmen too, and that's, some of them, that's kind of what they would like to see, a continuity. If you bring it under the county, you're going to have that continuity. You're going to have the discussions with the chief administrator. You're going to have dialogue. And that's, I think that's, been mistakes made in the past. There'll be mistakes made in the future. I continue to get that criticism. We'll continue and understand that. However, I agree that the board did the right thing. I wasn't here, but the board did the right thing bringing it back under the county, and we need to establish that committee back. I know right now there's not an EDC. We talk about an EDC, but you have one member of an EDC council that you meet. There's not been an EDC established. We need to establish that EDC of businessmen, like you say. There's been a number of them that have talked to me. A number of them are ready, willing, and able to step forward on a basis of just trying to help the community. And I think that's the direction that I support.
Mr. Magnuson, while you're here, and I don't mean to grill you here, but apparently we've got some problems, or we wouldn't be here with this. We had a fire board. We elected to go this direction. We said we'll put it under the chamber, kind of combine it, because the new Mr. Sellers here came in. He's not local. Sometimes you need people that are not local. But by putting it in the chamber, you had local businessmen, and that's what a chamber is. It's your business people, communities primarily, to help assist in there. So apparently that's not. I don't want to find the right road to go down. We're like Georgia road map. We don't know which road to take here, and to get it right and get it going. And again, I'll have to over to Commissioner Yeager. All over the state of Florida, we get this. It's not just Florida, the other states, they're struggling. People just, these big corporations, they don't know which direction the government's trying to go. They're sitting on their money. They don't want to turn loose any. Everybody's out there bidding for any little thing they can get. Back when we had plenty, it didn't matter. We don't care if it goes over there. Now then they're carrying. We're going to, as a board member, speak for myself, we're going to try to work this solution out here, get it on the right track, get it going. We need it.
I will agree with Commissioner Yeager that the government can be a sideline partner, but it should not be driving the train. People who have created businesses, who understand the creation of business, who understand how to run a private business, those are the folks that need to be on this board. It needs to be a small, tight board that you have only 5 people that come and answer to this board instead of 11. That's a difficult board to deal with. And we need to let the chamber go and function as a chamber instead of saddling them with this. Now, Mr. Yeager, this was your idea to pull it under the chamber. And I don't see where anything was really done to help the formation. And I don't think that that should count against the folks here. They've been struggling. Mistakes have been made, as you said. But mistakes have been made here because there's been actions going around the people that do understand the process of economic development. Other people have taken that role and gone around who we've put in place, and there have been mistakes made. And they're costly mistakes to the businesses that come in. Again, I'm going to say, I think that if you've been in government for a long time, you may not see it. But we do need to have a part of funding. We certainly need to have a role. But you need to let the people who understand business, our business creators, do the business of economic development. And we have to send that message. We have to make that commitment. And then in 3 years or whatever that time frame is, they come back. Of course, we have regular monthly reports, but at that time we look and see if it's worked. We've never given them, as a board, in recent times, we've never really given them enough time to make it work. It takes time. Not going to happen overnight. But I think, you know, we've talked about having a workshop. It's difficult for us all to get on the same schedule. We tried to schedule them. Certain people can't make it, and we all need to be there. We're all here right now. And I think we need to make the commitment. And again, I'm going to state a motion, and I'm going to ask for a second. I make a motion that we fund economic development as a 5-member board at the $80,000 per year commitment that we made for the 3 years. And if, Mr. Magnuson, if I didn't state that properly with what that commitment was, you can please correct that. And we need to make that commitment now. We have wasted so much time.
Now,
Can't waste any
Commissioner McDaniel, I know that we have had a lot of...
Here, hold on.
Sure.
We got a motion. Okay, now we got second for discussion.
All right, I'll second for discussion. Okay, now we can move along.
We have had a lot of issues, but I just want to guarantee you that during all of that time, Barry Sellers has been working on economic development. He has been seeing site consultants. He has been entertaining clients. He has been showing them various sites. So even though there have been some issues and there never was really a formal board that was put together, we were doing the job. We even filed the state requirements, even though the designation was taken away from us this past January for the county. So we have been continuing to do economic development.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. There is a citizen that said he would like to speak on this. Before we go to vote, I would like for you to allow him to approach the podium.
One clarification. Commissioner Bryan, you mentioned 3 years. Now, is that a new 3-year or the balance of the 3-year? What is it?
What do you think you need for?
What is it?
The balance.
There you go.
The commitment that was done.
The original commitment.
Right.
Okay.
Let me make sure that you understand one more time that and I generally just sit back and don't say anything about this. There was nothing written in writing. There was insinuations that they might need a 5-year, and we'll do a 5-year plan. I've not seen a 3-year plan. I've not seen a 5-year plan. We don't have a plan. So I want to restate, there was not a commitment from this board on a vote that committed to 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years. I just want to reinstate.
Excuse me, Ms. Bryant. Let me tell you what my commitment was 5 years ago, maybe even 6 now, when we first started this. My commitment was 6 months. Show us something in 6 months. We haven't seen anything. That's my commitment.
maybe the verbal commitment. There had to be some type of a commitment because they entered into a contract with Mr. Sellers for, I believe, 3 years.
We had a gentleman's, what you call a gentleman's agreement. We spoke about it, but nothing put on paper. I remember that much. But nothing put on paper. But I know this much for a fact. When I come on board, we got rid of Ed Nelson. We set everything back to ground zero. Now we finna set everything back to ground zero again. Guys, we got to realize something now. I'm speaking for the people who don't have jobs. Most of us got a job. So now let's take them in consideration. You know, them the guys who need the help. You know, right now everybody sitting here got an income coming in. So now if we're going to put something together to try to get some jobs in here, are we going to support Mr. Berry? Are we not going to support him? I mean, are we going to support the EDC?
Can we ask Mr. Lamb? He would like to speak. Mr. Lamb, are you here?
I'd like to say one other word. Mr. Chairman, I will not support anybody that spends most of their time out of town. We hire those people to work for us. Every single time I have called for Mr. Berry, he has been in Arkansas. For whatever reason, I don't know. I don't have a clue. But we pay a man $80,000 a year. I want some results.
That's not an $80,000 salary. Let's clarify right now.
What is it?
Well, the $80,000 doesn't just go to Barry as a salary. There's other costs involved. And Barry or whoever is in that position does need to travel. You are not going to pull economic development in here by staying in Gulf County. Now, he may have spent some time in Arkansas. I don't know. I'm sure Mr. Sellers can answer to that. Unfortunately, he was struck with an illness that he has gotten through. That was very unfortunate for him, and he may have had to go home for some treatment. I think we can all understand that. But he's not going to be spending his time in Arkansas. He moved here, and that was one of your requirements, and he did that.
That's right. But whenever I pick up the phone, it's not an illness. I'm at a wedding in Arkansas.
We'll let Mr. Sellers address it.
Hold up. It's Quinn.
Yes, sir. My name is Quinn. My name is Quinn Lamb. I live in Port St. Joe, Florida. I am a certified business analyst with the SBDC, which is Small Business Development Center, and the VBOC, which is the Veterans Business Outreach Center. We are sponsored by Gulf Coast State College, and our main offices are on campus at Gulf Coast, and we are financed by the SBA. Our services, believe it or not, are free. We do not charge for our services. The only thing we charge for is when we put on seminars or workshops, and that's just for the materials. I'm here to speak on behalf of Barry because I happen to have some involvement with Barry. I am not a social friend of Barry's. We don't go out drinking. We don't do anything together other than work. But if our goal here in Gulf County are jobs, then I say that you need to give Barry another shot and an extension. Right now, Barry and I are working on a project that wants to come to Gulf County. And it was discussed here that with economic development, time is really a problem. In other words, it takes time. But this particular company came to my organization, and I say my with SBDC, in August of 2011. And they came to us to get help. And what we do is help people get into business, and we help people who are in business solve some of their problems, such as accounting, financing, marketing, etc. They came to us in 2011, and we've been working with them ever since. Now, we don't do what economic development does. We advise them what to do. They do it. So we don't take them around holding their hand and saying, you know, this property is available, that, you go find a property, we'll tell you how to buy it, or how to lease it, or how to build a building, but we're not going to do it for you. So we're really a consulting group. This particular account, matter of fact, I have a meeting with them tomorrow. They called me last week, and they told me what a great job Barry was doing with them in getting through the steps that you have to take. In their particular situation, they have to buy land, they have to build a building, and they have to develop this business. I know what Barry has done, and I know the time. And how much longer will it take to get this off the ground? Their goal is at the end of this year. I think that's very optimistic. But their goal, being the company, is the end of 2013. And they started this in August of 2011. And that's not uncommon. That's not uncommon. I have projects, matter of fact, I helped one in Weewa that's just going to open probably at the end of this month, early March. And it's a rather simple business, but we started that back in November. And he didn't have to buy property, and he didn't have to buy a building, and he didn't have to get financing. He had the cash. But it still takes that long. You've got license to get, you've got permits to get. You've got to write a business plan. We won't even talk to people if they haven't written a business plan. Now, we help them. We tell them how to do it. We will work with them. We'll even sit down sometimes and help them write it. But that takes time. Time is so critical to an economic development program that, frankly, I sympathize with anyone who's in it. Now, I cover 5 counties, and so I deal with the EDCs, I deal with the chambers. Matter of fact, the chambers conveniently set up appointments for me. I go from town to town, and I have my meetings in the chamber buildings. And the reason for that is they want jobs. And folks, I'm just telling you that in Gulf County, we need jobs and we need businesses. And we need to work together to do it. I think fighting each other and fighting somebody like Barry, who is handling a very difficult job in itself, just makes it that much more difficult. If we are all here to do this thing called get jobs, then we got to work together as a unit. We got to stop being critical. I know I have heard criticism of Barry. Some of it is probably well-founded. If he has to find a way to report properly that satisfies the commissions, he's got to do that. I'm not, I can advise him how to do it, but I'm not going to do that for him. But that is a problem that certainly can be worked out. Problems, all of us are humans, and we humans are here to resolve problems. Otherwise, the good Lord wouldn't put us down here anyway. He says, I can solve them myself. I don't need you guys down here. So we really, truly need to work together. I've got 2 businesses that I opened or helped open in Bonifay. One is going very well. The other one's still struggling because we had to get commitments from the county commissioners to help fund it. We had to get certain license for the project to go. He is in business. He's going to succeed, but he's, he's working. And I've been involved with them since last June. And here it is 9 months later, and he still is in a rocky situation. So it's just a long process. I have one in Washington County that approached me or approached our company in December. Their target date is this coming December to open their doors. So it'll be 13 months that we will spend getting that business off the ground. So it does take time. But on behalf of Barry, I urge you to give the consideration, give him the time, and make him hold true to what he agrees to with the board that they're talking about developing and with you commissioners. And I think that if you do that, that it's a win-win situation because it does bring jobs. It fulfills what you commissioners need. That's some success. And I think it fulfills Barry's objective, and that's to succeed. So I thank you for your time. I thank you, Commissioner Bryan, for asking me to step up here. And it was good meeting you.
Commissioner Bryan, can you put your motion back on the board?
My motion is that we support Mr. Maguson's plan of a 5-person board that he will bring together, and we fund it for the remainder of the 3 years. That was the verbal commitment. And we fund it at the $80,000 per year, subject to them reporting to us on a regular basis monthly, as Mr. Maguson promised.
Ms. Brown, how do you vote?
You got a second, yes.
Got a second?
We did have.
We do have a
Yes,
second.
you have a
I'll
second.
second it.
Yes.
All right, I'll let my second stand.
How do you vote, Ms. Brown?
I vote yes.
Mr. McMorro? Mr. Yeager?
No.
Mr. McDaniel?
I vote yes.
Chairman vote yes.
Thank you very much. I gave both our annual and our quarterly report to Ms. Lanier yesterday. I was a little late getting the packet. Did you find that out?
I gave that to everyone
Let
this
me give
morning.
you the first quarter, which we're only a month into the first quarter, to kind of give you an update where we're at now on the projects. And for you. Sorry about that time. I thank you, and I'm going to work for all 5 of you, not just 3 of you. I'm going to work for all 15,000 citizens of Gulf County. I appreciate the opportunity. As Don said, you know, he's got a project he's working on that, for whatever reason, doesn't want to work with us at the EDC or at the port at this time. You get that on both sides. Sometimes people come to me.
I want to clarify something. He didn't say he wouldn't work with you. He said once they get all components together.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Correction. We get the same thing sometimes. They don't want the city to know something, or the county, or the state, or whatever. They work with us, and eventually I tell them we've got to pull in the city, the county, and certainly the state if we want some money on a project. So that happens. I mean, there are people that come in for one reason or the other. There's also people that maybe they see an article or they see one of our meetings on TV, and it kind of you have a little attention, and it kind of worries them a little bit. So they come in, and it's our job to calm them down again, let them know that's not the way it is every day in Gulf County, and to do a good job of selling and marketing community. As they said, there was 47 applicants for the position. I was fortunate enough to move to God's country a year and a half ago, and I certainly want to work here the next year and a half hard for you and eventually retire here. I want to make this my home. And in regards to being in Arkansas, I go home 1 weekend a month to see my wife, my grandson, and my grandmother. And my wife plans on moving to Gulf County as soon as she retires from the Arkansas Teacher Retirement System. That does not cross state borders, so she does not go to Florida. So she'd be crazy with 3.5 years to go to say, well, I'll just wait till I'm 65 when I can get it at 52. So, and most of y'all have met her, and she loves it here and can't wait to get here as well. So we're making a long-term commitment. When y'all talk about the 5 years, they did mine 3 intentionally in case something happened to me. The program's still in place. It's not just about Barry. It's about Gulf County and about the program. So I look very much forward to working with everybody here, and I sure appreciate the vote, and I will make it up to all of you. I promise you, we're going to win. We're going to get these jobs. Thank you.
Barry, let me say,
yes, sir.
This board voted, and it is what it is, and I want you to know that we will work with you, all 5 of us.
I know you will.
I've had many conversations. We'll continue to have more.
You remember during my interview process, you and another director, I said, are you going to run for another term because we need some continuity to keep you, and I think your wife kicked me for asking you that question, but you know that was true. You know, you need some stability, and that was before I took the job. Even you 2 of y'all were over by the pool, and I said I sure needs some stability, because there hadn't been stability in the past with cutting off too soon. But I'll give you another year and a half of hard work, and at the end of that time, you either keep me, bring it in, bring somebody else in. Anything short of the guillotine, I'm for. So, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if the board so desires, I would volunteer to be kind of a liaison between the board and Mr. Magnuson and the board that he's creating.
No, they need to report straight to Mr. Butler and let Mr. Butler report to the board. That's the way I see it.
There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to talk about the 5-member board and all those kinds of things that we'll work.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I can ask a question just for clarification before Barry and Gary go down, and just for the commission, if you all could, a couple of questions going forward. The designation to the state board, when does that happen for the administration? Is it subject to creating this new 5-member board? So if we can give the administration the instructions on designation first and foremost. The second, if it's going and you're changing the funding, then is this subject to a budget amendment? That's the next question that the clerk's office is going to need answered, as well as the administration. The next one I would ask, and it doesn't need to be answered today, but these are questions for the commission and Gary and Barry to work on. Is this an advisory board to this county commission, this economic development? If it is, it's subject obviously to sunshine and everything else. So we've been through that, and we'll have to do that. But those. If Gary has a proposal and Barry's going to work with the structure, that something comes back so that we do memorialize this other than the vote that was taken today, so we can put those, we can implement those additional answers both for the clerk and for the commission. And it's a question, and just ask for further direction for both staff and the clerk's office.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, thank y'all. We will work with each one of y'all. I want to get with y'all individually, get your ideas on how we should proceed and what's the best way to get more jobs into Gulf County. Thank y'all.
Harry?
Yes, sir.
You do me a favor. You stay in touch with that fellow right there, Mr. Butler.
I will.
Mr. Barry, when I first come on board, we made a decision, and I regretted that decision that I made. I never told no, I said and I said over and over, I made it. I made a decision today. At the end of this here, don't make me feel like I regretted making this decision.
I'll let you down.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. or Mrs. Fox would like to speak about street lights.
Gentlemen, I have one question. Why did you turn off our lights?
Mr. Chairman,
I'm talking to you. Can I speak first on this?
Yeah.
I'm talking right to you, Mr. McDaniels.
All right, sir.
Because you spearheaded the whole thing.
I did?
Yes, you did.
I think you're absolutely wrong.
Oh, I don't believe so.
I'll take the blame for that.
Will you take the blame?
I will.
And will the other two that voted against the plan take the blame too?
Yeah,
May I say this? Are you aware that I voted? I'm the only commissioner now.
That's right. I am aware of that.
Okay, so this is their.
I am not talking to you.
Mr. Chair, I'll take the blame for it. And let me tell you, it came about in a budget meeting, and we looked at every item. As I've said before, we've cut 40% out of the budget in 4 or 5 years because the public demanded it, because it makes better sense for business development and everything else for our community. But at the end of the day, what we agreed to is when there's a intersection that's important for a street light, let's put it there. But you got to understand that of all the county roads that we have, if we put street lights in for one section, we've got to provide street lights for everybody in the community. We don't have the funding for that. We don't even have the funding close to that. But I think the way that the board agreed was we'll take it one light at a time, and where it's a dangerous intersection, or whether it's a boat ramp or a park, we'll take care of those kinds of things. But we can't afford, the public, not we, the public can't afford to provide street lights all over the county.
Okay, what you're trying to say is money is more important than life.
No, sir.
We're living in darkness. I'm 75 years old. I haven't slept right since them lights went out. And I thank you, and you for that good thing.
Again, I think that we said that we would take every issue one light at a time, but we can't provide the public, general public, with street lights out in front of every home in our community. But if it's fair for you, why not it's not fair for somebody else in the community? We can't afford that. The taxpayer can't afford that.
Okay, one more question to you. Why wasn't we given an option of paying for that light?
You can.
You did not give us that option. You snuck in there on a Thursday morning and had all the lights taken out, 60 of them. That is not an option.
You have that option. You have that option anytime to get a street light. You can get one next to
we
your
have to
house.
pay $60 out of our pocket. I'm on retirement. I don't have a lot of money.
I understand. I understand.
I would have paid that $10 for that light that was in front of 4 of our houses.
Well, I understand, and I think you could probably still do that with your electric.
But now it cost me $60 to get one put in.
Yeah. I understand. But I just wanted to give you my thought process when we were talking about street lights in all of our communities. If we provide it for
I'm not talking
everyone.
about street lights in all the communities. I'm talking about street lights in Land's Landing
That's
that we had since I've been there.
Why should we provide them for Land's Landing, though, and not provide them in Cape Sandblast or Indian Pass or any other community? What's that?
Where do you live, sir?
I live in the city limits of Port St. Joe and Woodridge.
So you have street lights?
Yes, I'm in the city.
Isn't that great?
Yes, sir.
But you take ours away.
The reason I have street...
We are nobody out there, right?
Yeah. No, sir. No, sir. That's not the thought process at all.
Oh, Mr. Yeager.
Yes, sir.
I would like to speak on that street light issue. We got a lot of services that we used to provide to our citizens, so that we just can't afford to provide. I mean, and I would love to sit down and talk with Don and see can we work up something with the power company that you could pay that $10 or whatever they charge a month for that light.
Excuse me, Mr. Smiley, but they already took the lights out. Now it costs $60 to get them put back in. And 60 times 600, or 60 times $10.
Actually, they removed the lights?
They took them out, they snuck them out on a Thursday morning, and then when we got that Thursday night, there was no lights, nowhere. And I don't know, I don't like living in a cave, a black cave. I don't like that. I don't like that every scumbag in the county can come up into my yard and steal what they want. I don't like that neither. We can't see them come in our yards. We can't see them walk down the road. And if you see a crook walking down the road and dial 911, you might as well go out and take care of it yourself. Because we don't have the police out there neither. You know, it's a situation that is bad for everybody that lives in that area.
Not disrespecting you, but the problem just come up that we just addressed, a very serious situation. So we got very serious situations going on all over the county. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I understand what you're saying. I wouldn't want to be out there in the dark neither. I had no idea that they was coming. I thought they was gonna just turn the lights off. I didn't know they was coming out removing the lights off.
They removed 60 lights. Right. They retired 60 lights.
Mr. Chairman, may I just a moment?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fox, with all due respect, and I know you're upset there about this, and a lot more, you're not the only one, but and we have a workshop scheduled. It's one of the items on the workshop. I went over a lot of people in the Land's Land area, and I stated before I represent the whole county, not just the district. And I'm trying to get over in that area at the intersections. If you happen to live at the intersection, fine, but I'm trying and asking this board, because it does say intersections, 5 lights back in that neighborhood. Now, I don't know where you live, you didn't state, and I apologize.
I live at 285 Sunset Drive.
285 Sunset, okay, that's in the residential part in there.
I hope
Right,
so.
you're not, yeah, your intersection of Greenwood
Yes.
and, all right, but, well, at the intersections, we had discussed this here, and not just particularly for that area over there, but anyway, we can't, again, as Commissioner Jagger stated here in the board, this county can't afford everybody in this county a street light. I mean, that's wrong. Well, I rode through the neighborhood.
Are we gonna
There's
get a
enough
reduction in our
individuals,
property
there's
taxes?
enough
Because you
individuals in there.
Took them our property value way down. Are we gonna get a reduction in our property taxes?
Well, I can't go into any of that. I don't think so. But what I'm saying is
Well, no, I
this.
didn't think you'd go into something like that.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you anymore.
I'm not arguing.
We'll try to help you.
I'm
where I
stating
can,
fact.
and that's it. Okay. Thank you.
Sir.
Excuse me, Mr. Fox, can I get your first name for the record? I apologize for interrupting.
It's Harold,
Harold,
as
thank
in
you.
hair, old,
Thank you.
middle initial K.
Mr. Fox, we got a serious situation with the lights throughout the whole county. I remember when we took our limb trucks out of service, and we got a serious problem with that. We had to get some of them, get them back on the road. Go to talking about raising taxes around here, everybody here just jump up on their bikes. They don't want to raise taxes, but we want to keep our services just like at our landfill. Right now, we charge $35 to bring it in, but they charging us how much, Mr. Yeager?
70, some of them.
All of a sudden to take it out. I mean, it's really getting, you know, we don't have the money that we had at one time. And I always say we don't have that big smokestack out there taking care of lots of our problems like they used to take care of. And some things just got to give. I understand very seriously what you're saying. If I lived out in that area, I wouldn't want to be out in the dark, just sitting out there. But this board have to make some decisions. And they chose not to raise taxes on people, but to cut several things back. And the lights was one of them.
I wouldn't mind it if you took all the lights in the county out, but you took one area out. One area.
No, that's not the case. There was just a few areas that had county lights, because I don't know how they got there in the first place, but we took all the lights out, and Lynn, you can verify it, all the lights, county lights out that weren't at dangerous intersections, or a park or a boat ramp. And so everybody got lights out.
Ms. Lynn, how many lights did we?
It was a total of 53 total lights, and that was everywhere from Cape San Blas, St. Joe Beach, Overstreet, Stone Mill, Williamsburg, and Land's Landing.
I went to the electric company and they took out 60 lights out of Land's Landing.
There was no 60 lights in there on the
That's not
county.
true.
I'm sorry.
And it is in the previous information packet as well. The lights previously to them being turned off, there was a memo to the board in the packet prior to the lights being turned off. It gave the addresses for all of them.
We didn't get informed.
It was on the county website and in the agendas.
Oh, Commissioner McLemore can shed light on that.
Hold up for a minute.
I'll take reference to your issue with law enforcement. I'm very well aware that the lights are been taken down in
Yes.
the area of the Land's Landing. We've increased patrol down there. Your issue with the lack of law enforcement should be taken up with him, should be taken up with me. I'll be glad to speak with you.
I'll be in to see you.
I have increased patrol during that area. Unfortunately, if the lights are out, you probably can't see.
Well, sir, with all due respect to your job, which I respect your job,
Yes.
if you increase the enforcers out there, they're going by without their lights on because we don't see them.
They're there.
And I'm awake.
I've increased that.
I can't sleep nights because
I'll be glad to speak with you.
I'm
Concerning the law enforcement. That's on
thinking
me,
of
not on them.
our lives out there. Our lives are worse than a few pennies to this county.
I just wanted to let you know to address me and not them concerning the law enforcement.
Your name is?
Sheriff Harrison.
Harrison, right. I forgot your name. I'm 75.
But Mr. Fox, I mean, the board took everything that you said in deep consideration. Like to the light issue is at hand that, you know, the board made a decision, and I'm willing to stand behind the decision that the board made.
That's your prerogative.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Lynn?
I believe we now have a public hearing on the animal control ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, we have a restore committee that starts at 11 o'clock every Tuesday. Might ask if you would ask Ms. Kempinski if she can make her presentation so she can leave to make that before we get into the public hearing.
Who was that again?
Go on.
Sorry about that. I was watching the clock here. I just have one thing, actually, that I just wanted to make everyone aware of. It actually came out in the News Herald yesterday and will be out in the Star on Thursday. We have begun taking applications for the CDBG housing grant that we have going. We are doing that in conjunction with the SHIP program. There are a couple of differences in the two programs, so everything is spelled out in the notice. I took out a quarter-page ad to make sure that it was very visible. We've also got it on the website. But the CDBG housing assistance applications are now available. Those have to be turned in by March 11th. The SHIP applications will not be distributed until March 4th. We're going to be having a joint workshop on March 4th. We'll assist anybody that needs assistance with the CDB applications as well as the SHIP applications. They'll be presented at that time. And due to some special requirements with the SHIP program, we cannot start accepting completed SHIP applications until March 18th. We'll accept those from March 18th to the 21st, but they will be distributed at one of the two workshops on March 4th. Those two workshops will be held from noon to 2 o'clock Eastern Time, and then from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That way, you know, if they can't make one, they'll make the other, and both programs will be discussed jointly. One other thing I wanted to make everybody aware of is that we are also taking contractor applications to do the construction projects for both of these programs. We'll be taking those applications until March 11th. And it's like a pre-qualification for contractors, and then those will be vetted by our administrator, Jordan Associates. They will go through and vet those contractor applications, and then they will be pre-qualified when it gets time to actually start going through the homes and doing the site visits.
One clarification, please. Is it limited to the county, or is some of it in the city and county?
That's a good question. About 600,000 of it plus 125,000 of SHIP will have to be in the unincorporated area.
Unincorporated, okay.
But there's probably, I would say, between 200 to 250,000 that can be inside the city limits.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got a wide variety.
Yeah, one question, Ms. Juan, because we got into this, I remember this 3 or 4 years ago. You won't accept outside the county, will you?
No, well, they won't be eligible. They might submit an application, but it would be ineligible. It has to be inside the city limits. I mean, inside the county limits, sorry.
This happened to us back 3, 4, 5 years ago.
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of it, but no, sir, it has to be inside the limits of the county, and my particular grant has to be outside the city limits. I can't do anything inside the city limits because each city can apply for their own. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I can, the next agenda item is the public hearing on our first reading of the animal control ordinance. What I'd like to do, Mr. Chairman, is if I can just revisit how we are here today. I first read the title, actually, at our January 22nd, 2013 meeting for the public's information by title. And I'll do that again this morning. Back in May of 2012, this commission tasked a animal control subcommittee to revisit the ordinance and come back to you all. We have met subsequently on June 7th, August 7th, August 22nd, November 7th. Most recently, the PDRB considered this on the 21st of January with regards to the land use elements. And we're here today with the packet in front of you that's been distributed to the public as well. Your Animal Control Subcommittee has come up with proposed language that would revisit what started in 1998 and it was ordinance 1998-11. It was amended in 2004, once again in 2005, and we're here today with a revision to the language. In front of you is a proposed ordinance. There's 4 sections to the ordinance. The first section is with general terms. It provides you with definitions throughout the ordinance. It also provides for definitions of humane care, the kennel requirements, and feeding feral animals. Section 2, as you go through, it's pages 20 through 21, is the impoundment and redemption clauses. Section 3 is your rabies control, which is pages 22 through 23. And Section 4 deals with dangerous and aggressive animals in accordance with state statute under pages 24 through 31. I'm going to read it by title, and then I'd ask if you all would, I believe there's some folks here, both from the subcommittee, members of our Humane Society here in the community, as well as other folks from the community that would like to speak on the ordinance as well. So I will read it by title, and then turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman. It's an ordinance of Gulf County, Florida, whereby amending the original Gulf County Animal Control Ordinance number 2005, and thereafter its amendment through ordinance number 2008-20, and here amending by adoption of Gulf County Animal Control Ordinance, whereby providing for definitions, providing for authority and enforcement, providing for adoption by reference, Florida statutes relating to animal control, animal welfare, and animal cruelty, prohibition against nuisance animals, providing for humane care guidelines, prohibition against animals from running at large, providing for permitting requirements, providing for multiple pet permits and kennel prohibition on feeding feral animals, regulating sale of animals, providing for proper redemption and disposition of unwanted and impounded animals, providing for rabies control, providing for proper handling of dangerous and aggressive animals, providing for spay and neutering requirements, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Mr. Chairman, we've had considerable participation at over 5 meetings plus county staff input. Commissioner McLemore has assisted us, as well as Mr. Michael Aiken and Roland Jones. I'd also like to thank Sandy Christie, Melody Townsend, Gary Gibbs, Butch Colbert, and Dana Blocker, who have given of their time and served on the subcommittee as well to where we are today. So I turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, for public comment after the first reading.
Have anyone from the public? Animal control.
I'd like to speak.
All the telephone calls I got on animal control, we don't have no one.
Comment.
All right, Mr.
Mr. Turner, there are a couple of things in here that I'm really not completely satisfied on, that I would probably be against adopting. One of the issues is the pet permits, you know, for kenneling.
Yes, sir.
Would you have to go buy a permit for that?
There is an administrative fee. The language leaves it to the, in terms of kenneling, it was first considered 10 dogs, then it was reduced to 7 by the subcommittee. Right now there would be a process that you go through to apply for a kenneling permit, if you will, on an annual basis. That's subject to the Commission's discretion in terms of the actual administrative costs. I think the staff would have some considerable input as to what it would cost to go out, do the inspection, make sure they're compliant with the statutes, and then come back. So we leave that to you all.
Another issue I have is feeding feral animals. You know, I have a problem with that. Maybe I do it wrong, but if I find something, need some food, fellas, I'm gonna feed them. You know, if that's just me. So that's an issue for me. Now, I wanted to ask you about providing for rabies control. Now, is that saying that every animal you have has to be vaccinated, or how's that?
No. What we can't do is if a person has a cat or a dog on the property, we can't go onto people's properties. This is the redemption phase of the actual ordinance. So if there is an animal that Roland Jones brings into the county's custody and takes it to our Humane Society, at that time, or if there's a pet out there, a dog or cat running with rabies, and we take it in, then we have an obligation at that time before we turn it back out to give it that vaccination.
Oh, okay. Okay, that clears that up for me. I have no problem with that. Neutering requirements.
Again, on redemption, impoundment and redemption. That's correct.
No issue on. I do have a couple issues, one being the permits and one being the feeding animals.
And if I can, Mr. McLemore, I could touch on some of them. We had some public input at a couple of meetings with regards to feeding and trapping feral animals. It went back and forth. There was considerable discussion between our animal control officer, our subcommittee members, and folks from the public that came and talked about it. There was some amendments to the language. The Humane Society is here today. They can talk about what they do in terms of when they take in feral cats. I believe they have a process of clipping the ears so that when they put them back out, they know that they've obviously been treated. The concern was with regards to feeding feral animals was baiting them other than on your own property, or not having control of that feral animal after you bait them or feed them. So what people do on their own property is very difficult for the county to ever enforce. But when it goes on off someone's property and you're baiting and feeding feral animals and release them back into the wild, our animal control officer and the discussion of the committee was that that is just, proliferating problem. It just, you're not controlling, you're not, in essence, meeting your mission of animal control.
What about the permit?
As far as I'm concerned, I'd like to hear from the public a little more. I have had one or two calls, but very few comparatively, I think. So I would like to hear from the public. And if after we hear from the public, if you want to make some amendment, this is a first reading. This is what this, this is what this is all about. Whether if we need to change it or whatever.
Will you give your name?
Sandy Christie. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm a citizen of Gulf County. This is Melody Townsend. She's the director of our Humane Society here in Gulf County. I'm the vice president of the board of directors of the same. I'm also the director of Dogs in Prison, and I serve on several other boards that rescue and rehabilitate canines. I do all this as a volunteer. We did spend a lot of time with this subcommittee. I appreciate the opportunity to do that. I think that the final ordinance that we've agreed to here is a good ordinance. It certainly doesn't have everything in it that I would like to see, nor Melody or our board and all the people that contribute and donate to the Humane Society. But I felt it was a very good compromise, and it was a step in the right direction. So, Commissioner McLemore, you've been very supportive of the Humane Society in the past, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. And I'm going to continue to support
I know you will. Thank you. You and I agreed at the outset of this process that we might have to agree to disagree on some items. I think that we compromised a great deal on the tethering language. So I hope you're pleased with that.
I am.
So going to the feeding of feral animals, this is a very emotional and sensitive issue here in Port St. Joe. Primarily the cat population, the feral cat population, not so much. We're not directing this towards birds, feral dogs. We're really looking at the cat population. So if you look at page 18, do you guys have this? Okay. If you look at page 18, it talks about prohibition on feeding feral animals. I really want to draw your attention to section C, the exceptions. So a person may feed or harbor a feral animal if the animal is spayed or neutered. And a person may feed or harbor the feral animal if they accept legal responsibility for that animal. It also says that you're going to comply with the other provisions in this ordinance. Number 3 is you may feed or harbor the feral animal while on private property and with the express written approval of the property owner. So I really think that that covers most of the concerns that most people have. It's very difficult to control the feral cat population in Gulf County.
It's not in Dalkeith. I can tell you, the coyotes,
I was going to say,
they
you have
take
more
care of
coyotes
them.
than Dalkeith, yeah. So we have a very active group here in Port St. Joe, and they do a wonderful job. Nancy Leist is the head of that group, and she's assisted by many volunteers, Donna Broker and Connie Lamb, who's here with us today. And they go out, and with permission, they trap feral cats. They take them in, sometimes at their own expense, no expense to the Humane Society. They spay and neuter the feral cat, and then they release it somewhere where someone will take legal responsibility.
Hold on for 1 minute.
Motion.
Got a motion by Mr. We got a motion by Mr. McDaniel, second by Mr. Yeager. Any opposed? No opposed?
No.
Huh?
Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks.
You want me to sit down? Okay. So, I hope, does that address all your concerns, Commissioner McLemore?
About the, permitting.
Well, I can go to permitting. Is that okay with the ferals?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, I want to pass out some pictures. I need to tell you just a few stories if you'll bear with me. This is Mandy. These are pictures of a hound who was close to death. When she was brought in, she could barely stand, and as you look at those pictures, they're very graphic. You can see every bone in her body. She was picked up by Roland after the neighbors began to be able to see through the long, overgrown grass. What had happened is somehow Mandy had escaped her pen. I don't know if anybody else wants to see these. Mandy had escaped her pen. However, and this is very emotional for me, I'll take a breath here. Her companion dogs trapped inside the pen had starved to death. So when Roland got there, there was only one dog he could rescue, and it was the one that made it outside the pen. One of the reasons, now the second set of pictures that I passed out are pictures of a dog I think that many of you have heard of, and we named him Hero. And both of these dogs are media darlings, so to speak, and have been covered by our major networks in the area. You know, Hero was bound by a wire and kept in inhumane conditions, obviously, so that by the time we received this dog at the Humane Society, he had horrible wounds and looked as if he'd almost been decapitated. Now, both of these dogs have a successful ending, but why would we want to put any animal, domestic animal in our county through such a horrific experience? So one of the reasons we wanted to have the kennel section in here, we've always had a kenneling requirement in our animal control ordinance. This is not new. All we did was put teeth into it.
Permitting is.
Yes, that's right. The permitting part is new, and that's the teeth. Because if somebody has more than 7 dogs or cats on their premises, we feel that they are operating some type of a kennel. Whether it's a boarding kennel, a private kennel, it's a kennel. It comes under the definition of kennel. And therefore, we feel that that operator should have a permit and should be inspected so we can make sure.
I get a motion.
So moved to shut the clock off while we're dealing with this issue.
It's just.
And I'll try to be quick, but we want to prevent what you just saw. The Humane Society is about humane treatment and trying to make sure that the animals in our community have a reasonable quality of life. That's why we want to go in and look at these situations. What do these people have to hide, would be my argument. If they are taking very good care of their animals, if they're providing humane treatment and adequate shelter, why would they not allow a permit?
Okay. Here's my thought on it. I don't have a problem with the permit. You know, let's make it right. You're going to take care of your animals, blah, blah, blah. My problem, my issue is the cost of the permit.
Okay.
So if we can do something, you know, even with the permit, then we're still in contact with the homeowner there. Rolling to inspect the whole 9 yards. I have an issue with the cost.
Mr. McDaniel, right now it's presently $100. That's for your first inspection for that permit. So if the commission today wants to make an amendment to modify that, they certainly can.
Absolutely.
I do also, in terms of the permit, there's an inspection requirement. And when we have folks in the community that have that 7 or more, after the first year with no violations, and they sign the application the following year by mail, there's no required inspection for that second year going forward, as long as there's no violations in the last 12 months, as well as bringing no other additional pets on the property. So that one inspection is there waived after that by mail. But you certainly make an amendment to the fee.
You know, I'd rather see them take the $100 and buy food with it, medicine, whatever they need.
We're open to an amendment about that. To me, the most important part of this process is assuring that the animals there have adequate shelter and are being treated humanely.
I don't have a problem with that. It's the permitting cost. So if we
Okay.
can do away with the cost on that, I'm ready.
Do away with it or make it nominal?
Oh, go away with it. Yeah, we shouldn't have to buy a permit. We shouldn't have to buy a permit, pay for a permit to house an animal. We're not in the building department. This permit requirement will give Roland the authority to inspect and make sure that they're doing with the ordinance. But when we get into a food with this, I have a problem with it.
Well, I'll have to say that I also received numerous calls on the ordinance, and I know you all have worked very hard on it and put a lot of time into it. This is only the first reading, and I think that we have an opportunity to maybe do some tweaking as needed, and possibly we could do that before the next reading, and it would give me a chance to look over some of the issues that folks called in the last few days about as well. But I am also in agreement with you that we need to protect our animals and provide a humane...
Safe haven.
That's right. But we also don't want to put anything in place that can't be enforced or is too onerous on people who just are animal-loving folks who are taking care of their animals. So maybe if we could just tweak it a little before we come back again.
We okay with that?
The Humane Society's position here is that we are allowed to go in. We're not actually doing the site visit. It's animal control. But we just want to make sure that there's a process in place to get the permit and to inspect the premises.
Honestly, I'd like to see Humane Society run the whole show. Get me out of the picture. Not like we did with our probation officer 5 or 6 years ago. We made a move with that. We privatized it or whatever. That's the best thing we ever did, to be honest with you. Anyway, that being said, I think Ms. Bryan's right. We'll review a little bit further. This is first reading. We can tweak it.
Commissioner, if I can just add, while we're on the topics, you brought up a couple of discussions. I just want to read the one section with regards to rabies so that the commission's clear going forward. It's every dog, cat, 4 months of age or older shall be vaccinated against rabies with a U.S. government-approved vaccine. Each animal shall be required to be vaccinated no more frequently than the effective period of the approved vaccine used. Such vaccination is excused only if a licensed veterinarian certifies in writing that a vaccination would be injurious to the dog or cat's health. In such case, the dog or cat shall be confined in an enclosed building or kennel until the dog or cat can be safely vaccinated. And then we have a whole other provision about dangerous or rabid animals. So there's a provision in the ordinance that strictly deals with what is required. And we'll go forward in that. There's also specific language with regards to, and we've received considerable input on animals and vehicles, and I'd encourage the Commission to read that as well over the next 2 weeks, so when we come back to the issue, if there's any comment on that as well, in terms of the calls and comments I've received.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you all, Ms. Sandy.
Connie,
Can I make a statement about the dog ordinance?
yes, sir.
My name's Randy Wright. They come up with a good ordinance, but it's way too long. They covered everything they could think of. How I can transport my dogs, how to feed them, how to water them, how to have a rabies tag on them. I don't put them on my dogs for a simple reason. They don't stay on them. They won't last 6 months. I have one in my pocket. You can see. They're 11 of them. On an active dog, it wears off, falls off. Gone in 6 months. You talk about transporting my dogs. You tell me I have to tether it in the back of the truck. I've rode dogs around Gulf County for 21 years.
and without a tether. They don't jump out. They don't bother nobody. A cat can go by. They won't jump out, chase a cat. I'd rather not tether them. Slam on the brakes and break their neck. On a tether, then where I'm going to be. And the kennel requirement, 1 litter of puppies or cats puts you into a kennel requirement. You think about it, they're going to have over 7 animals. I mean, they come up with a good ordinance, but I don't want to have rabies tags. I don't want to have to how I transport my dogs. Ain't the county's business. There hasn't been a problem up till now. People feeding feral animals, they're keeping these animals from starving to death. Humane Society would rather see the cats starve to death than people spending $20, $30 a week out of their own pocket feeding these animals. That ain't right. I'd rather see them, I mean, they're going to eat birds, squirrels, whatever they can get. They're going to starve to death. That ain't humane. Like I said, it's just too much. I mean, they put everything they can think of in this permit. If you start about 20, page 20 and go back, that's fine. But a lot of the requirements in the beginning, that's just too much of it. It needs to be shortened.
And that's why this is the first reading,
Yes,
so
sir,
we
I
can
understand.
hear.
That's why I'm speaking.
Yes, sir, we need to hear from you and anybody else that, wants to discuss it.
Well, I got a problem with
we need to hear.
it's talking about the private roads. Dog catching on our private road. It's a private road for a reason. You don't belong to the county. It's a private road. Private property. You send a dog catcher on private property, something happens to him, who's liable? Whoever owns the land is liable. Are they not? If they get hurt on somebody's property, who's liable? Homeowner, whoever owns the land. I understand this is the first reading of it. It needs to be shortened a lot. Oh,
Need to hear from people like yourself.
well,
To throw these concerns out, so we can, at the end of the day, we can make the best decision we know to make.
well, it was in the Star that we could get a copy of this 2 weeks ago. You could not. I could not get a copy till this past Friday at 4 o'clock. It wasn't available in their office.
And Mr. Wright, you and I spoke recently about these issues, and I will follow up with you. We have some time before the next reading, and have your number still, and we'll reach out to you. Well,
I appreciate it. Like I said, it's just a little too much.
Thank you very much for your comment. Sir, here go your vessel.
Yeah, they might need to keep them in the truck in case I need them. But like I said, you see how thin they are?
They won't stay.
They won't stay. And it's like a little bell. I got one dog that drives her crazy. You sit there and pick that, scratch it up like it's a flea, and you don't stay on it 6 months. It's lost in the yard. Then, as long as it's in my truck, I can show you I got it. It's on the dog. It's just like a little bell. It's drives her crazy. Thank you. Good work on it.
thank you.
You got anybody else from the?
How's it going?
Pretty good.
Mr. Chairman,
Name?
Commissioners.
Can you give a clerk your name?
My name's Jake Lewis. I live at 336 Redfish Road. On the dog issue, I've owned a tree hound for 42 years. I've trained 2 world champions. I've had my shows televised. Every dog owner don't mistreat their dog, and that, to me, that looks like it's where it's headed, that everybody that kennels a dog, I mean, personally, you can come to my yard anytime you want to and look at my dogs. I take care of my dogs. Just like the rabies. He said, licensed veterinarian? Well, I give all my dogs all their shots. I give them all their rabies. I give them rattlesnake vaccination. Because I don't want them bit by a rattlesnake and I don't want them killed. I got one dog I've been offered $8,000 for. I didn't sell it. Because I have dogs for my own pleasure, And I order most of my medicine from Jeffries out of Duckman. I just wanted to say, just like the rabies, I agree 100%. Dogs needs to be vaccinated. But a man that's got 7, 8 dogs, That's gonna cost him a lot of money to carry 7, 8 dogs to a vet when he can do it himself. You know, and that's all I got to say.
Mr. Lewis, let me make a comment on this. I understand clearly you and Mr. Wright, you love to hunt with animals, and I used to, I quit. But getting too much bureaucracy here. That's too much government involved here, and we don't need to go there. You made a true statement. 99% of the people that own animals, it's not the animal's fault, it's the human's fault. Now, hunting season, I'm not sure. I think it just went out for deer. You can probably go up on the Apalachicola River on the Liberty County side and find animals. The last day of hunting season, they just took the collars off and turned them loose. They want to feed them the rest of the year. Now, that's wrong. That's wrong, and that's what a lot of this is addressing. It's not going at you. You'd never be approached by any of this. Well, I don't feel like you would, or Mr. Wright, or any of the people that right out here. I know a lot of people, they have pets in their homes, pets in their yard, both dogs, and that's great. That's great.
Well, it bothers me as much as anybody when I see a man drag a dog box out of the box and his hip bones are sticking up that far. You can count every rib in his body. A dog ain't got to be like that, you know, to hunt. He'll perform for you better. You take care of him. You interact with him. They do better.
We'll work on this.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Anybody else from the public?
Sandy's coming up, Mr. Chairman, if I can, just to address one of Jake's issues with regards to vaccination, and also Mr. Wright, in terms of the entry onto private property. That's one of the reasons we have some additional language in there now, so that it's clearly defined under statute as to when you can and can't go on. So our animal control enforcement officer only can go on for specific reasons that are laid out in your ordinance, and I encourage you all to look at that. There's no intent on here to trample anybody's private property rights. This is only to address an issue. Other comment from Roland, I know he's not here today, but during the meetings, our subcommittee meetings, he had repeatedly indicated he's one person in terms of enforcement of this ordinance. The committee intentionally made motions to give him the ability to use his discretion. People's treatment of their dogs and hunting dogs and things of that. Roland's very aware of it over the years. He commented to the subcommittee that he was aware of the culture and the treatment of hunting dogs, and he encouraged the subcommittee to give him the ability in the ordinance so he could use his discretion and look at specific scenarios and a set of facts that were specific in terms of humane treatment of a dog. So there's a couple times in here you'll see in the ordinance where it gives the animal control officer the ability to analyze the treatment and then make a judgment call whether there's a $150 fine or should not be. So as you read through, you'll note that language as well. Andy.
First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Wright and Mr. Lewis for their love of animals, because that's something we very much have in common. Humane Society is not here to try to penalize anybody, take anybody's rights away. We're trying to protect the 50-some dogs I see every day at our shelter, and the 25-plus cats. Anybody that would like to see how animals are treated in Gulf County is welcome to come to our Humane Society any day. I'll meet you there. I'll give you a tour. I'll show you the animals that will break your heart. And I'll tell you that those animals survive and thrive because of a core group of volunteers and special employees that give and give and give every day to take care of the animals that are not taken care of, the animals that are so easily discarded in a throwaway society. That's what this is about. We're not trying to penalize anybody. In fact, the Humane Society was a sponsor with the Health Department this last year of a free rabies clinic. So if cost of a rabies vaccination is a concern, let us know. We plan to do more free rabies clinics. We'll do whatever we can to help an individual pet owner. We will give them food. We will help them with their costs. As I said, I have volunteers who take money out of their own pockets to help families spay and neuter animals so that they don't over-proliferate. One of the worst problems we have in this county is unwanted litters. Those unwanted litters end up at the Humane Society. So, I just want to make that clear that we do appreciate those comments. We would love to work with you. I'm free to meet with you anytime, as is Melody Townsend. Please come visit us. We'd like to show you what we're facing. Thank you.
Cleve Stevens, Gulf County. Yeah, I have some problems with the language here also. And I also believe that Roland is overworked, and this is going to require several people to enforce at any more than it's more than one man can do, I'm sure. And I've made some notes, Warren, if you want to look at it since you're in my district. These are my concerns, and my number's on there all. And by the way, I want to say that I think that the Humane Society does a great thing. This last year they did the spaying pets program, and we caught many wild pets and brought them in here and had them spayed. So look at that. Tell me if you have any questions.
Anything else? Yeah. You have anything? Ms. Becky.
Yes, sir, I do, thank you. Back on December the 12th in your agenda packet, you had a memorandum from Mr. Nelson from Emergency Management. In the consent agenda, we put the subject line, a state home security grant contract. The detail was in the letter, though, and I just want to get it on the record that Mr. Nelson was requesting by this memo that the board contract with Disasters Strategies and Ideas Group, LLC, under the state contract. If you look back in December, that won't be reflected in the minutes on the record because the subject line was just the Homeland Security grant. So you approved it in your consent agenda, but I just wanted to get it on record that you contracted with this group to do a service. And I will say for the record, too, I need to tell you this, that it was $49,798. Being under state contract, it did not require a bid.
Anything else, Ms. Becky?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Chair. Leah?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sellers gave to me after they had spoke earlier a letter from the Chamber of Commerce. It's in reference to the Gulf Coast Workforce Board appointments. And on behalf of the Chamber, he submits nomination to the Gulf Coast Workforce Board appointments to reappoint Mr. Patrick Farrell to another 3-year term. His current term ended November 2012. And as well, they also need one business sector member for a 3-year term to replace Mr. William J. Rich Jr., who has resigned. So that's for the board's vote consideration.
We can clear up Mr. Farrell, one motion, so I'll make a motion to extend him.
Second. Got a motion by Mr. Michael Moore, got a second by Mr. Yates. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
And the other appointment, can we do that at the next board meeting, Ms. Lanier?
Yes, sir.
State again, it's got to be
a business sector nominee.
Good.
That's all I have.
All right.
Jennifer?
Mr. Chairman, in front of and commissioners, in front of you, you have my monthly report. I'm not going to go through it. I'm sure you read it from head to toe, right?
Sure.
So we have completed the 3 research studies, and the findings were presented last week in an open workshop. The entire presentation's in your information packet. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. We'll do one more brief presentation at the City Council meeting on the 19th. We completed two bids in the past few weeks. The first one being bid number 1213-06 for beach cleaning RFP. We had 2 proposals submitted based on my beach cleaning committee and unanimous approval of my council, they asked me for your approval to award it to Coastal Parasail on the condition that I speak with him and this company face-to-face to make sure they understand the new process and the expectations of the TDC and the county for beach cleaning. I did do that, and I feel confident that Coastal Parasail will do a fine job, and I'm asking you on behalf of my council, who approved it unanimously, to award Coastal Parasail the beach cleaning contract.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Mr. Yeager,
Second, Mr. Chairman.
second by Mr. Mike Daniel.
And thank you for taking that off my hands.
Any opposed? No opposed, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. The process is that the beach cleaning will be initiated and administrated through the TDC. The second bid was bid number 1213-07. It was actually an RFQ for companies that specialize in social and digital media in the travel category. After review with my marketing committee and unanimous approval of the council, they've asked your permission to engage No Luggage out of Charlotte, North Carolina as our agency of record for social and digital media. Upon your approval, I'll work with Mr. Novak to go through cost negotiations to be sure that the costs are well-founded and all work fits within the budget.
You satisfied with?
Pardon me?
Are you satisfied with?
Yes, sir, very much so.
Okay. So move.
A motion by Mr. Mike Daniels, second by Mr. Yeager. Any opposed? No opposed, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And the last thing, I've included a copy of our amended schedule for the Welcome Center. We've begun being open on holidays. We'll start Saturdays around spring break, and then add, and all through the summer, the TDC staff and I will be changing our schedules, and we'll eventually be open Saturdays and Sundays throughout the season. Thank you.
Mr. Brett.
I do have one thing. Brett Lowry, Deputy Administrator. I do have one thing regarding the ship. We will be calling and contacting each one of the old ship applicants back when we did the 09-10 money this past year. I'll contact all the applicants that that didn't receive funding. I know you all get calls left and right, so if you'll let them know that. Also, I have copies of the advertisement that has gone out in the News Herald and will be going out in the Star and on our website. If any of you want copies of that to give to constituents, just come by and see me. Right.
Brad Price, Gulf County Fire Coordinator. I want to request permission for the board to go out for bid for the White City Fire Department.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Mr. Yeager.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mike Moore.
Question on the building?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just clarification.
Any opposed? No opposed, motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the first item I have is with regards to your EMS contract that was approved by you in October of 2012 with Bay Medical. We had introduced it. You had approved the proposed agreement with Houston's Guidance. We provided them a basic services agreement where we would receive $3,000 a month for that service and aid to Mexico Beach. They approved that and had to execute it as of January 1 of 2013. So the effective date of the contract upon their approval was January of this year. We went back and have submitted invoices to them for those 3 prior months. The contract date and the approval from them was not for those 3 prior months. The effective date of the contract is January 1. We've gone back with them and discussed that. Obviously, you all approved it in October, and as a compromise, they have proposed that they would pay half of that contract rate before they actually ratified it and approved it. So they're proposing to pay $4,500 of the $9,000 that originally we had invoiced them for until they approved the contract. I'd like approval from the Commission to send the correspondence confirming the receipt of that $4,500, and we may move forward as of January 1, billing that $3,000 rate per month. And the clerk can have that clarification, and I'll memorialize it in a letter to Bay Medical.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Got a motion by Mr. Yeager.
I'll second it.
Second by Mr. Mike Daniels. Any opposed?
let me, make a comment on that. Mr. Whitfield and I worked with Bay Medical on this, and, he came back to me a couple of weeks ago, maybe, or started at the fiscal year instead of the calendar year, which we should do in county government. And, $3,000 per month, and they asked it they be billed monthly. Am I correct there, Houston? Monthly. Right. And paperwork and all, and so they asked me what was my feelings on going from the 9,000. They didn't have to give it to us.
No, sir, it was...
They split the difference, 45, so I said we take the 45, and then they're on board now. So we'll be getting $4,500 plus the $3,000 per month. Now, my understanding is that Bay Medical has delayed the transfer of the ambulance service to the, is it still on there? They moved it from
Bay Medical Center
until latter part of the year here. Okay, but our main goal was to get in there where we could get grandfathered in. Hopefully, the Bay County would keep us on board, and we would get a little revenue out of there. We need every penny we can get in this county, so I want to thank Mr. Whitfield and the attorney here for the correspondence. Get the necessary paper documents that we need, get them to them. We'll get them set up on a billing. And Whitfield, if there's any account you want this money earmarked?
We need to show it going into our receivables where we can be credited for how much we've brought in against our budget. So I don't know.
In addition to that, Mr. Houston, it's the flat contract fee per month plus the billable for the runs.
True.
But if it can be coded in such a way that obviously that maybe the commission knows going forward that mutual assistance or that aid, as long as this contract is alive, you all have a line item maybe that identifies in addition to that $3,000 per month.
Let me clarify for the public out here, ones on television. We will still collect. It's not that we're going to do Bay County for $3,000 a month, the Mexico Beach area. No, they will still be billed, their insurance company, Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever, or TRICARE, but Bay County is just simply saying it is more economical for Gulf County to do it than it is for us to put a station out there and man it. So that's all it is. It's just, we just ask for a little compensation for giving them a service that we've gave them since 1974. Thank you.
I got a motion by Mr.
Just a brief statement. The monies collected will go into the general fund, basically.
Yeah, it can't go against receivables because it's not tied to a run. It's a service you're providing, and that's your fee. But if you're billing the individual for each run, now that goes in receivables, but we can't put the contractual amount in receivables.
Show the credit is to what we've earned.
I mean, it'll show in the general fund as a contractual arrangement with Bay County.
We will know that you're receiving those funds, and we'll know how to budget accordingly, but it won't show up specifically in your budget other than how we do that at the beginning.
Now, who's going to do the billing out? Ms. Norris, this one there. Okay. All right. That's good.
So we got a motion by Mr. Yeager. We had a second by Mr. Mike Daniel. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, the next item I have is with regards to the November ballot in the general election. If you all recall the amendments that we had considered on our ballots back in the fall. Number 11 on the amendments was with regards to a homestead exemption for seniors in our community and elevating the homestead exemption to $250,000 on the condition that they were homesteaded on our property for 25 years prior and had lived consistently in that, and they also met the fixed or low income threshold. That amendment passed on the general ballot and is now left to our local municipalities and our counties to adopt an ordinance to that effect. And I'd like to ask the Commission for permission to go forward and adopt or introduce and advertise a two-page ordinance with regards to implementing that homestead exemption for our senior community who had lived in the same property for 25 years and an exemption up to $250,000, and that is up to the Commission to authorize.
Come in, Mr. Chairman.
A motion by Mr. McElmore.
Second.
Second by Mr. Yeager. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
Mr. Chairman, the Mexico Beach Reef Association, in your packet of information, page 147, I had submitted to the county on their behalf. They had requested, consistent with last year's event in a Veterans Park on St. Joe Beach and Beacon Hill, is to have their captain's party in August. They've submitted their DVPR application, and they've requested of the county commission approval to go up to the Veterans Park again in, I believe, August for their one evening in their event. You approved it last year, and Mr. Childs and Mr. Cox have requested that approval again this year, consistent with the letter I have in your information packet.
I'll make the motion for approval.
Got a motion by Ms. Bryant. Commissioner Bryant? Got a second by Commissioner McLemore. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
The next item I have is with regards to the industrial park lease agreement. We have the EDA's approval for the actual lease terms. The proposed tenants on the property, in discussion with them, have requested the county the ability to engage in an agreement outside of the EDA lease that we have with them for the next 5 years. They've requested the ability to, after being in it for 5 years, doing the job creation, paying the county the rent, the sales tax, and the property tax, to have the ability to purchase the property. After you're outside of the EDA's requirements for that property in the industrial park, you have the right to engage with them independent of EDA's approval. So with that, they've requested the ability to have the first right or access to the purchase it from the county, and we can draw that agreement up. I need the direction of the commission with regards to a right of first refusal, and also how we structure the market value of the property at the time 5 years from now.
Comments from the board?
I think that's a good process going forward.
Yeah, that's just one more headache out of our possibly. They move forward from us.
Motion by Mr. Michael Moore.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bryant.
One question before we vote. Mr. Attorney, when would is the expiration date when we're out from under this umbrella? Is it 14 or 16?
I believe it's 5 years from, it set the date on the original lease for January of this year, so it'll be through 2018.
2018?
Yes, sir.
And it'll come out from under the umbrella?
That's correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't, did that motion pass?
So we had voted
okay,
on
I'm
it.
sorry.
I had a motion by Mr. Michael Moore. I had a second by Ms. Bryant. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I didn't want to compound the requests of the proposed tenant, so I'm breaking them down. The next request of the tenant, and they're not here to speak on their behalf, but they've expressed to the administration and myself the interest or the request of the commission to provide additional consideration against their lease payments over the next 5 years towards the ultimate purchase price of the property. So that is a business discussion. They have asked for some type of consideration. They're going to pay X amount of dollars per month to you as a county over the next 5 years. And what they've asked for is to take a percentage of that and apply it towards that ultimate purchase price if they do meet your market value and they do exercise their right of first refusal. No specific dollar amounts, no specific percentages, but I would need to have your authority to respond to them.
Question, the lease payment,
I believe it's $1,500 a month.
is that a market value lease payment? Is that a reduced payment?
We did do we received it from, I think it was a comparative market analysis that we had received, if I recall, down on the square footage.
The $1,500, that's for, I think, the first 3 years. It goes to $2,000 a month after the first 3 years. And that was, had to be approved by EDA in Atlanta. We changed letters with them 2 or 3 times, but they did agree to that amount based on a market analysis that we had performed on that property.
So you're saying that the market analysis stated that $1,500 would be the fair market rental.
The fair market in the agreement, not the sidebar agreement, I call it sidebar agreement, but the agreement between Gulf County Board of Commissioners and this firm that was approved by EDA, the number was closer to $2,000 a month. The $1,500 a month was in consideration of them making the improvements to the floor, the walls, the ceiling, and we not make those improvements.
So basically what you're asking is some direction of the board to take part of the lease payments and let him apply that to a down payment at the end of the term.
Correct.
You know, if it's some incentive, I wouldn't be opposed to that. I just don't know the percentage that we would, you know, to the board, but
Let me tell you the incentive here is employment, just what we talked about this morning. These people are going to add to their company.
And that's required in the lease, in terms of the incentives and the EDA approval. There's a job creation factor in the actual lease, so they'll all have to meet these job performance. At the end of the 5 years, the EDA is taken out of the equation and it's up to this commission. But before, it's a request on behalf of that. If the commission wants to designate one person from the commission, and then we can report back as to, you know, a recommendation. Again, I don't have any figures to put in front of you. It was a request of the actual proposed tenant.
I'm not opposed to some figure. I'm just trying to grasp a number that would be appropriate. And I've seen some of these before, and I've seen some of them go up to 50%. And I've some of them as little as 10. So I don't know. I would let one of the board members, whether it be the chair or whomever, to work with the attorney and try to come up with some recommendation to come back to the board.
I'll also include a proposed right of first refusal in the packet in 2 weeks. You all have that, and then you can take this into consideration at that time. You've already approved the right of first refusal, but I'll provide that to you so you have the specific language of their rights in 5 years.
Okay. May I interrupt? Didn't we have a motion on, didn't I make a motion to move forward with this lease?
I think we've already done that.
Yep.
We're good, we're moving forward.
Second part. The leases have been approved by all three parties. Now this is a right of first refusal and a business dealing that you have separate and apart in 5 years from now. Consideration on the purchase price.
Will this slow up the company that's wanting to move in? They're ready to move.
By at least 2 weeks to come back. We don't have a firm figure from them of what they've requested. So with the commissioner's assistance, we'll go back to them, ask them, and then we'll come back and make a presentation to you all to approve in 2 weeks. Or we can.
If you need a special meeting, if they're needing to get this thing going forward, and you need a special meeting, we can always call a special meeting to get them to move.
Okay, let's look at that then, because this company is ready to go to work.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the next item I have is, your last meeting, there was a invoice provided by the Chamber of Commerce with regards to last year's spring fling event with the Downtown Merchants Association. It was a vote of this commission to go back to the TDC, which we did last week, and ask them for further input and a recommendation with regards to the approval of its funding. Last week, the TDC voted, one, stated on the grounds that it didn't meet their sponsorship guidelines, and it was a conditional approval. They had not received the actual invoice or payment request for approximately 7.5 months afterward, that they voted unanimously to recommend to you as a commission to reject the payment of that invoice. So I'd ask the commission's direction on that.
So move on the recommendation.
Got a motion by Mr. Yeager, second by Mr. Mike Daniel. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
The administrator touched on earlier about our restore point for Mr. Raffield. I just wanted to elaborate. He did express his gratitude to the commission. He appreciated the appointment. He had other commitments on those Tuesdays that were keeping him from attending and his business, and he wanted to thank the commission for that and tender his resignation. So the only other item I have is with regards to the picture I distributed to you all prior to the meeting. We'll have a request from some of our property rental companies, specifically with regards out to the Cape. Michael Aiken, our code enforcement officer, has been enforcing our new sign ordinance since last summer and doing a very good job. He is discussing with the companies and the folks in the community that have signs and trying to find, as this adjustment goes on for our businesses in the community, of what works, what doesn't, and comes back with questions from time to time in terms of enforcement or interpretation. This picture in front of you has been submitted to the county as a possible consideration for the commission. In your ordinance last summer, you all adopted rental signs on existing rental properties in this county. Now they need to be placed on the actual structure. So as you see a home and you see a rental sign on it, it needs to be placed on the actual structure. The thought and the recommendation and the request of Mike Aiken was, if there is an ability to build garbage enclosures on the properties and they were uniform in size and structure, would the commission consider some leniency or possibly not enforcing the specific language of the ordinance and allowing rental signs to go on an actual garbage enclosure that's still on the property. So I've enclosed a picture that they've submitted for your consideration. It is not something you need to take an action on today, but I offer to you all as comment so that you can maybe consider it, get public comment, and we can revisit it and provide Mr. Aiken some further instructions on how to go about enforcing the sign ordinance going forward. But this is a request of some of the rental agencies and the merchants we have in the community as to a leniency in the interpretation of the ordinance.
I've had a few calls on that, Mr. Chairman, and I would like to run it back through the sign ordinance committee, but I think it's a good idea. I think it's probably appropriate. It doesn't, it doesn't hurt the integrity, I don't think, of the sign ordinance, but
Don't see no harm.
I'd like to run it back through the sign ordinance committee.
Run it.
Yeah, I will work with county staff, unless you feel it's necessary to bring the private citizens we had on it. What we'll do is I'll work with the staff, try to come up with some specific language as to size and how the structures are made up, and then present that back to you all for consideration to approve something of that nature. Right. All right. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Sure. Here. Mr. Yeager.
Taking care of one of them real quick, and I'll take care of one. And I've got two other issues with the attorney. I need to, Jeremy, get a minute of your time with the South Gulf County Fire Department. They wanted to talk about some specific issues that they've got help doing. So with that, if you would get with me, I want to schedule a meeting with them. I've had some comment from the Coastal Community Association talking about some of the ordinances that Walton and Bay County has on leave no trace. It's an issue, and I was going to get the TDC involved. Matter of fact, Jennifer was going to touch base with Walton County and come over and have some discussion on that. Bottom line right now is I don't have the staff to implement an ordinance, but I do want to discuss some type of educational process, and then down the road, if we see an ordinance is necessary, we can talk about that. This will affect Brian's district also, but at the end of the day, I just want to have some dialogue and going forward, let them know that we are having some dialogue on this issue. Other than that, I don't have anything, Mr. Chair.
Only thing I have, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to compliment the sheriff on the north end of the county with the patrol and Lieutenant Buchanan, yes, and they're a good job they're doing up there. We do have officers visible, and they're out meeting the people, and things are a lot better north end of the county. Thank you, Sheriff, so much. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I don't have nothing today, but what about public discussions? Do we have anything from the... Mr. Joe, I'm sorry, Mr. Joe, you're sitting right there in front of me.
Yes, sir. Something real quick. In my solid waste grant, I had the purchase of a cable and wire stripper. I have found 2 items that meet my specs. Couldn't find a third, so I want to run those by you. First one is a Gensco model CSX 1010. Total price, including shipping, of $6,700. Second model is a Strip Tech Model 3000, $6,050. Shipping's included. I recommend the Strip Tech. I'd like y'all to give me your yay on that.
Is that the lower bid?
Yes, it is.
All right. Would you just take a moment and explain this machine to the people out here where they'll know where the money's going?
We get thousands of feet of wire at 5 points, and it's not worth putting a man down with a wire stripper to pull it out. This machine will do 100 feet a minute, and we can strip a lot of wire out and maybe make a couple bucks for the county.
Good deal. Okay. I just wanted the people to know what it was going to be used for.
I need a motion from the board.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Huh?
I'll second.
I got a motion.
I'm ready to go home.
I got a motion by Mr. Yeager. I got a second by Ms. Bryant. Any opposed? No opposed. Motion carries 5-0.
And the Strip Tech made in Fort Worth, Texas, my hometown.
Good deal.
That public discussion.
long meeting, but I have a few things I need to discuss with y'all. My name is Roy Carter. I'm the County Extension Director for Gulf County. I'm employed by Gulf County and also the University of Florida. I want to thank y'all for moving us out that facility and we bought the old courthouse. And there was more than invested into that the new facility. We appreciate that, but we still have a few issues that we need to deal with over there. Otherwise, we have programs that we offer, and I need adequate space to offer those programs. And just to give you an idea of what we have coming up on the agenda, I don't have a copy for everybody.
I got one.
You can see we have a beekeeping program coming up. It's going to be done from the University of Florida. He done interactive video. We have 17 counties in North Florida that would our satellite that would build this program, and I'm offering it to all the beekeepers here in Gulf County. And beekeeping is one of the hot topics in the ag arena now. In other words, when you speak beekeeping, mention beekeeping, you get a lot of response from your audience. So we're going to improvise and do the best we can starting next week with the facility we have up there with this program. I anticipate at least 15 or 20 people taking this course. So I definitely need that conference room as soon as we can, as soon as y'all can address it and get it renovated. We need it. And also, the rest, like I said, with justification, we have another program that will start the following week.
Lord, may I ask you one thing?
Yes,
Who scheduled these meetings, these events?
I'm one of them. We part of a company. You know, I wait for the University of Florida. We come in just
Good.
like this district. Okay, this beekeeping, this is my brainchild.
Is that
a list of all the counties there that's involved in these programs. We have to do them because of the time and the space that we have. And I know I can tell what money's tight, but I just want to show you justification. I do need the facilities. And as I said, I know money is tight, and I appreciate all y'all do for us. Y'all have done a grand job, and I'm going to do the best I can with what I have. But, they're going to be congested. Mr. McDaniel, you've been back there and looked at what we're going to do.
We were up there yesterday.
Okay. But if we can get that conference room renovated, it'll make it a lot more comfortable for the audience. So please consider doing it as soon as possible. Ms. Brown, I hadn't formally met you, but I look to having dialogue with you concerning who we are and how we serve this county, so that we'll schedule that at a later time.
I look forward to it.
Any rumors? Anything I can do to help y'all in your districts?
We're going to try to help you.
All right.
Mr.
Okay.
Carter, we
All
sure
right.
are.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public?
So move to adjourn.
Up.
I hear you.
I heard you all were tired going home.
Warren, good to see you.
Yeah, I'm Nick Vacco. I'm out on the Cape. I'm Port St. Joe.
Sorry, your name?
Nick Vacco. And I just wanted to, you were talking about the no stuff left behind on the beach, and the TDC, they actually decreased the amount of trash cans out there. I mean, they reduced them to like 2 or 3. I'm assuming that's who it was.
Yeah, we met this morning before the meeting, and we're replenishing some of those because we heard from the CCA in the meeting, so we're replenishing some of those.
Because the South Gulf, we've been out there doing a safety
patrol. We've been doing it for 2 years now. We drive the beach, and we end up carrying, especially like after spring break, and we pull enough trash off the beach, just on the beach, not in the cans, but just what people leave behind, not including the bonfires that are left burning that we have to put out, the ones that get caught up in there's a lot of potential danger out there, and I'm glad you're going to address that, and we just wanted to be a part of it, that's all.
Absolutely, and we appreciate what y'all do.
So,
Nick and the group down there patrols the beaches different times, and all volunteers, and they do a good job, work with the sheriff's office, and do a good job.
But we just want to make sure that was discussed again.
Hold up, guys, come. Anybody else from the public? Now can I get a motion to adjourn? Got a motion by Mr. Michael, a second by Mr. Yeager. Let's go home.